is always a little boxier than the others, a little bit more squared. And this year it really is full on squared off and boxy and edge to edge. And I actually like that a lot. It's still aluminum on the sides and then glass on the front melting into the back with these slopes and curves. But the phone, for whatever reason, is just a little bit lighter than you'd expect it to be. Like, it's a huge phone, but it's not that heavy. But that's nice, I guess. And then Samsung has done build quality really well for years now. Fully IP68 water resistant, as you'd expect. The display comes all the way to the edges and the corners. The camera bump on the back is there, but is not too much that it affects typing on a flat surface. And for once, all the ports on the bottom of the phone line up through one line of symmetry. Nice. And then we all seem to have something to say about this crazy Aura Glow color. There are other colors of the Note 10 Plus, but you might not even know about those because this is the one that gets all the attention. It's almost like they saw Huawei's 3-color gradient phone getting a little popular and they were like, wait. Hold up. What if we just give them all the colors? So now you have this crazy psychedelic every color look. So it looks impressive on camera, but it's really mostly more of a shimmery silver most of the time you're looking at it in real life. And then the best way to get those colors to pop in photographs and things like that is to shine a lot of light on it at the right angles. But on top of that, it's also a mirror finish and a fingerprint magnet, earning it, I guess, my award for most difficult phone to make videos of all time. The question is, would you still skin it or put a case on it like pretty much everyone does with every other phone? And I think just because of the fingerprints, I'd end up skinning it. But the good news is if you grab a dbrand skin, you'll still kind of get some of the bits of psychedelic rainbow colors picking up a little bit. So I'll link these in the description for the channel sponsor below if you want to check those out. So yeah, I guess final word on the build, big glass phone. Again, but it's a nice shape, and I like the build quality over some of the other big glass phones, so I like it. There's only two things that they changed that were questionable. One is the button placement. It's now just the power button and volume rocker, and they're both on the left side, and then there's nothing on the right side of the phone at all. I personally prefer the power button on one side and volume on the other, but this wasn't so bad to get used to. And the whole Bixby thing is actually hideable. You can set a long press of the power button to just open the power menu instead of Bixby, so you can essentially silence accidental Bixby presses forever, which is great. But the other one is the headphone jack, or the lack thereof, and this was a tougher one to stomach for a lot more people. The Galaxy Note, the phone that's been known to do it all, the big phone with the room for all the big features, gets rid of the headphone jack. Like, not a couple more months, Samsung? You couldn't have waited till the Galaxy S11 or something like that? You had to get rid of it, starting with the Note in the flagships? Seems like kind of a weird choice, but that's how you know it's dead. So if you really need a headphone jack in your next phone, you can now cross Samsung flagships off your list because there's no way the S11 has one either. Now, I've said in the past it's not a huge deal for me, but what I think really rubs salt in the wound here is the speaker on the Note 10 isn't exactly great either. But hey, at least they put some USB-C headphones in the box, and there's a growing world of good wireless headphones out there, so it's just the world we're in now. The fingerprint reader has moved underneath the glass on the Note 10, just like on the S10, and it's still just a half a beat slower and a little bit smaller than the one I'm used to from the OnePlus 7 Pro. You can see in a side-by-side the difference. If you open up and unlock your phone many times a day, like me, you will kind of start to notice this. I was hoping the ultrasonic fingerprint reader would be better by now, but that waiting game continues. It's definitely not terrible, just something I noticed. I'm basically nitpicking at this point. But then again, when a phone costs $1,100, you really should be nitpicking at this point, right? So on the subject of nitpicking, the display, no pun intended, it's beautiful, right? It's a 6.8-inch corner-to-corner 1440p AMOLED panel. Very bright, great colors and customizable color profiles. Like I said, goes right up to the corners, tiny bezels, almost not even there anymore. And the edges roll over the sides a bit, but not as dramatically as they used to. And the ultrasonic fingerprint reader is underneath it, and it's been one of the best phone displays in the industry for multiple years running. There's just a little bit of off-axis color shift, but it's nothing too drastic. You see it on some OLED panels, but overall it's not too bad. It's just a pleasure to look at. But, and you probably saw this but coming from a mile away, but it's 60 hertz. And that is my sticking point. Again, I just came from the OnePlus 7 Pro, which had a 90 hertz display, and I've been using other high refresh rate stuff. The iPad Pro is 120 hertz, the ROG phone, the Razer phone, and I love it. It's one of those things you can't unsee. The difference is actually really noticeable as far as smoothness and perceived speed. Like even if things are happening at the same speed, they feel faster on the high refresh rate display. But I really miss it in the Note 10. I really wish the Note 10 had a smooth, high refresh rate display. Even just 90 Hertz, I don't need the full 120, and I'm pretty sure Samsung can do it. Fairly confident they're already making high refresh rate OLEDs for other phone OEMs, but it's not in the Note. So again, to keep up my nitpicking, the phone that's supposed to have everything doesn't have just this one thing that I happen to really like.
Kids love the Mix and Match wardrobe by Joe Fresh. Go matchy with a fun Dalmatian print and a denim jacket, or try a color blocked hoodie and cargo joggers. Buy 2 Mix and Match styles and get 3,000 PC Optimum points. Shop now, in-store, and online at joefresh.com.
Whatever you call it, yeah.
Did you get your field trip report done for tomorrow?
I haven't finished it, but it won't take long.
Please go get it done.
Okay.
And do a good job.
I will. Also, can I hang out at Jake's tonight?
If you get your work done.
Okay, fine.
And what about you? You got some homework tonight?
Yes, I have a status report that I need to get done before tomorrow's meeting at 9.
I'm done.
Wait, show me your report.
So I use this website called Beautiful AI. It makes everything really easy. Can I go hang out with Jake and Sophie now?
You can.
Go have a great time. So, beautiful.ai, is that what that was?
That's the website they've been using.
Wow, that was
Super easy. Finished already?
Yep. Didn't take any time at all.
That was quick.
Infinity O display with this little hole punch cut out at the top for the front-facing camera is totally fine with me. It disappears to my eye pretty quickly since there's almost no information ever up there in the middle of the top of the screen, and the cutout is nice and small because there's no extra depth sensor or any of that stuff. And speaking of cameras, the set of triple cameras on the back of the Note 10 is very familiar, essentially the same as what we've seen from the Galaxy S10. It still has the dual aperture main camera, which I think a lot of people forget about. Like, they could have ditched this and many people would never have noticed, but they kept it. And there's also a 2x telephoto camera and an ultra wide in tow here. And Samsung hasn't made the most gigantic leap forward with their cameras over the past couple years, but it feels like that's mostly because they were already pretty good. Still top 3 or 4 out of all the smartphone cameras, right behind your classic Pixel and iPhone, and you gotta get it up there with Huawei. Dynamic range and colors are still great, and as you can see, even a pretty good amount of overall contrast to bring in some real shadows, and I feel like I've noticed the consistency between the 3 cameras get better and handle more challenging shooting scenarios overall as well. So that's just the beauty of computational photography, is the software just keeps getting better and better. A new feature they talked about is called Zoom In Mic, I believe. So you'll be taking a video, and if you zoom in, whatever subject you've zoomed in on, you'll also zoom in the audio for that subject based on the microphones all over the camera. Seems fine. All right, this is the test of Zoom In Mic on the Galaxy Note 10. I'm convinced it's not actually like laser focusing on my voice so much as it's just making me louder, but what do I know? One of my favorite new things is actually that there's now a dedicated night mode that I do leave on. It's kind of similar to Pixel's Night Sight. Almost as good, but not as good, but you can actually turn it on in a dark environment, take a much better photo. So now it's up to Apple, I think, as really one of the last major ones who doesn't have a dedicated night mode. Hopefully we'll see that in iPhone 11. Battery life. A, almost A+. It's a 4,300 milliamp hour battery in this phone, so I love that it's a huge battery cell, even though there's a whole slot in the side for a stylus. It has wireless charging. I really missed that a lot with the OnePlus 7 Pro. And there's reverse wireless charging. And this big Note 10 Plus is capable of 45 watt fast charging, which is low-key actually insane for a phone. I really want to try it. Fastest charging I've ever used in a phone was Warp Charge 30. So this is, 50% faster than that, which is crazy. But either way, you can expect 4 to 5 hours of screen on time every day out of this phone like I've gotten with normal to heavy usage. It's pretty good. And speaking of that column down the side, it wouldn't be a Galaxy Note without that S Pen. So for a lot of people, the S Pen is what really makes the Note so special. I don't know about you, but I've never really been the biggest S Pen user. I feel like every time I'm using a Galaxy Note, I try it for the first week or two, and then I slowly use it less and less. This new S Pen is built a bit different. It's a little bit shorter now, and it's unibody, of course, but it'll feel pretty familiar. Same idea with the button on the side, and it still has that clicking back. Very satisfying. And then also, as you can see, you get a blue pen with the Aura Glow phone. Fun fact. But the headlining new feature of the S Pen this year is the ability to do gestures in the air. I'll tell you right now, I can never quite get them to work great, but even if I could, I don't think I would ever use them for this. Sorry, yeah, Gimmick City. I already know there's going to be like one person in the comments like, well, actually, there's going to be an SDK so that people can build in Samsung's S Pen Air gestures into their apps. Which is true, but how many apps do you expect to do that, really? Or how many users do you know that are on the edge of their seat waiting to be able to fast forward through YouTube videos by twirling their S Pen? Yeah, no, it's a gimmick. But it still does all of the awesome stuff the S Pen has always done. So things like annotating and drawing on screenshots, it's the best version of that in my opinion. And handwriting recognition is cool. So literally as you write, it's transcribing what you write into actual text with OCR that is searchable in the Notes app. This is dope, so well done Samsung. And there's also all kinds of little tweaks like that throughout their software. Samsung's come a long way since they introduced One UI. It's still not my favorite Android version or skin, if you want to call it that. It's not the fastest updated. It's not my favorite in terms of looks, but it hangs, and it's honestly way better than the ones that I really hate. And performance, despite the lack of high refresh rate, are pretty awesome thanks to the big-time specs. Snapdragon 855, UFS 3.0 storage, and 8 or 12 gigs of RAM. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. No heat issues, multitasking is great, gaming is great on this huge screen. It's what Note users are used to. So, all that being said, yes, the Note 10 is a small incremental upgrade to the Note. My take is, that still makes it a pretty great phone. It hits all 5 of my pillars of a great smartphone, which is awesome. And if you remember, last year, my best big phone of the year was the Galaxy Note 9, and this manages to be an upgrade in pretty much every way except for the headphone jack from that phone. So that's impressive. Just because none of the updates were revolutionary or massive, all it really means is like Note 9 buyers don't have to upgrade to this, of course. In fact, what I think it means is if you were already a Note fan, this one is also going to be a great phone that you're going to like. And if you weren't already into the idea of a Galaxy Note, then this one won't really change your mind. But for those of us who are just really into the tech, the overkill lovers, the big phone users, the power users, the Galaxy Note 10 Plus is a great phone again. And it's also clearly now the favorite child among what's now a Note family for Samsung. The Galaxy Note 10 Plus has a lot of things that the smaller Note 10 doesn't have, including but not limited to the support for 45-watt wireless charging, the depth sensors on the back for AR, the micro SD card slot, the bigger RAM and storage options, the much bigger battery, the 1440p display, all these things. Only on the bigger phone, but
Ignite Wi-Fi Hub
that's
lets
a rant
you block
for another
access
day.
to websites
A video
that ruffle
for the
your
future.
feathers, so
But
they
for now,
only see what
that's
you
my
want
thoughts
them to see.
on Samsung's Galaxy Note 10 Plus.
Introducing
Thanks for
parental
watching.
controls with Ignite
Catch you guys
Wi-Fi
next time.
Hub.
Peace.
I swear to God when I come home, I'm gonna hold you so close. I swear to God when I come home, I'll never let go.
This is the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus. In a vacuum, it's
Like
a
a river
no-brainer of a
afloat.
buy, with a feature list longer than almost any smartphone,
To the
and an
ocean
8-year legacy of
unknown.
almost nothing but hits. But you
pull me
shouldn't buy
close,
phones in a
guiding me
vacuum.
home.
You should buy them in context. When you look at how good the competition has gotten, 700 and 400 of price points, the Note 10 Plus has to work harder than ever to justify its $1,100 tag. I've been using the phone for 7 days. Let's see how close it gets to that justification. Flashback to last year when it was tough to justify a four-figure price tag for a phone, especially since I'd just eviscerated the iPhone XS Max for the same offense. But I argued that the Galaxy Note 9 was worth it because it was as close to no compromises as you could get. Well, while the Note 10 Plus doesn't bring as many compromises as its smaller Note 10 sibling, the ones it does make are contentious. Let's start with the now absent headphone jack. I mentioned in my hands-on that it won't bother those who've already made the switch to Bluetooth headphones, but for creators, whom Samsung is specifically targeting with this new built-in video editor, the 3.5mm jack is still a crucial tool.
We take a situation like this where I'm talking directly to the camera. It's cool to use the S Pen as a remote, and the live focus effect can make it look like I'm on a malfunctioning holodeck, which is cool. But without a headphone jack, I can't plug a lav mic into the Note. And with a field of view of just 80 degrees, the framing gets a little cramped unless I use a selfie stick. This phone really could have used something like a 97-degree camera, like the wide-angle selfie on the Pixel 3.
And then there's the new fingerprint sensor. When in-display readers are implemented like they are on the OnePlus 7 Pro, I really like them because that optical reader is super fast. And if it does make me wait, at least it gives me visual and haptic feedback while it tries to authenticate me. The Note 10's ultrasonic reader is slower to begin with, and since you get no haptic feedback and barely any visual feedback on the AOD, well, that makes it feel even slower. There's no longer a heart rate reader or an iris scanner on the Note 10 Plus, neither of which I really miss. But what I do miss is the notification LED. Still, the best way to tell you that someone's trying to reach you if your phone is across the room. Now, I hope you're not bummed out about me starting with the negatives, because Samsung does give us a bunch of goodies in exchange, starting with the biggest battery ever put into a Note. I punished this thing. The first thing I did after unboxing was set the always-on display to persistent mode, and I set that gorgeous screen, also the biggest ever on a Note, to maximum resolution. This being the summertime, it stayed close to max brightness most of the time too. To pile on the pain, I paired the phone to a smartwatch and 2 sets of Bluetooth headphones, and I never took fewer than 30 photos a day. Despite all that, the phone never got close to 0 before bedtime after 18 hours. When I did charge, the 25-watt adapter in the box got me from 0 to 58% in a half hour, and to a full charge in 75 minutes. I only had to do that for testing, though. I usually used wireless charging. The Note 10 Plus gives you that capability in forward and reverse, in case you have a Galaxy Watch or Galaxy Buds you need to juice up on the go. That's a feature that came over from the Galaxy S10, and so did the camera array. It is so nice to have this diversity of angles, especially the ultra-wide camera. So I'm pretty forgiving of the shortcomings, like the inconsistent color science and the lackluster low-light performance. Yes, even with the new night mode, it's not great. Here's a fun fact. I spent most of my review period shooting video with the Note 10 Plus instead of stills because of how much I enjoyed that new super steady stabilization. This was shot with no gimbal, no rig, just a phone in my hand. Samsung has peppered in a few new features here. You get a zoom-in mic, probably inspired by HTC, which increases microphone sensitivity as you magnify on a subject. And speaking of stuff borrowed from other manufacturers, super slow motion is back again, largely unchanged from the S10, but still more useful than it is on the Sony phones. Package all that up with the built-in video editor, and you get a potent production platform for mobile filmmakers. Not as potent as it could be, with proper manual controls in the camcorder and the aforementioned headphone jack. Samsung is still bested by LG there. And the free video editor is very basic and a little buggy. You're going to need to invest in something like Adobe Rush to produce something with any kind of polish to it. Incidentally, I will have the opportunity to try that. Next week, I'm going to produce a video entirely on the Note 10 Plus when I test out Verizon's new 5G network in Providence. If you want to see that when it goes live, make sure you're subscribed to The Mr. Mobile on YouTube. We've left the phone's Halo feature pending for long enough, wouldn't you say? Yeah, Samsung is once again leaning mainly on the S Pen to differentiate the Note, and it's still the phone's most compelling feature. No, not because of the new gyro gestures, which I find just as useless after a week as I did in that first minute, and certainly not because you can doodle on people's faces now. Those are the kind of gimmicks that lead to people dismissing the S Pen as a toy, when really, it's a very useful tool. In addition to being a helpful anachronism for those who still love the feel of handwriting, it's a mouse that brings the precision clicks you need if you're going to do stuff like edit video on the go. It helps with the flow of the edit process, with the button controlling play and pause so you can more easily navigate the timeline. It's great for photo editing, making precision changes to certain regions of the photo. And for someone like me, whose thumbs are finally starting to feel the effects of years spent swiping smartphone screens, it's a much appreciated alternate input method. It's like those old Jeep stickers. You need to use the S Pen for a while to understand it. Or, you could just get hooked on this.
That's what happens when you spend too long making a phone video. Things get a little weird.
Okay, say the meat and potatoes folks, what about the cake underneath all the icing? Mixed metaphors aside, the fundamentals are strong. Voice calls are bright and loud, and those dual speakers also make watching media a pleasure, with only a slight casing rattle to complain about at max volume.
Hi, I'm Michael Josh, and you're watching Gadget Match.
The phone's design boasts more attention to detail than any Samsung phone up to this point, right down to the fully aligned ports at top and bottom. I already mentioned the screen, but during the edit process I saw this tweet from XDA's Max Weinbach on Twitter, and he's right. I think this is the prettiest display I've ever laid eyes on. Refresh rate be damned. And the phone itself is strikingly beautiful. You gotta love a phone that looks like a compact disc. But if you're tired of the fingerprints, or those reflections messing up your out-the-window Amtrak shots, you can kill 2 smudges with 1 skin thanks to my sponsor, dbrand. Whether you go for a special grip case or just the classic vinyl skins, you'll get protection and looks that you just can't find anywhere else. Hit the link in my description to deck out your Note 10 or 10 Plus, and thanks to dbrand for sponsoring this video. Folks, I'm going to bring it home with a slightly controversial opinion. An expensive smartphone is fine, as long as it packs extensive features. The Galaxy Note 10 Plus fits that bill, from its spec sheet to its S Pen, and if it's between buying this or an iPhone, the Note is definitely the more compelling product. But if you forgive my speculation, it seems like Samsung didn't try as hard to blow the roof off with this one. And if that's true, I think the reason for that might be that when the Note 10 was being designed, Samsung still expected the Galaxy Fold to be the thing that would wow the Note's traditional base. Needless to say, it hasn't worked out that way, at least not yet. So, as impressive as it is on a few fronts, on others the Note 10 Plus feels like the launch event that announced it. Flashy, but also by the numbers. It feels like a phone from a company that knows it doesn't have meaningful Android competition in the US. A company that, as my colleague Andrew Martnick puts it, is already winning the race in neutral. And in 2019, with excellent phones like the Pixel 3a and OnePlus 7 Pro on shelves for many, many hundreds of dollars less, you're soon going to have to do better than this to earn the kind of glowing recommendation the Note used to be known for. My friends, as long as this video is, there's more I didn't get to, from Samsung DeX to more of those camera modes, so be sure to check out the full review from Android Central, which I'll link below. Big thanks to Hayato Huseman and my other friends from AC for their help assembling this video, which was made possible by a review sample from Samsung. The company did not offer compensation for this review or receive copy approval rights. That means they're seeing it at the same time you are. Please subscribe if that's the kind of review you'd like to see more of on YouTube. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay mobile, my friends.
From the moment that I first started using the Note 10 Plus, I had a feeling I was going to like it, but now after reviewing it, I can say that it's pretty much the best phone that Samsung's made in years. There are so many things I like about this device, from the really beautiful, brilliant display and the sophisticated design to the camera quality. I think that Samsung really did a lot of things right, and there are very few drawbacks. It has this really beautiful 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display that made binge watching Netflix videos extremely easy. Read some ebooks on it, just fantastic experience. It's got this front-facing camera right in the middle, which is exactly where it should be, and the curved sides that are signature to Samsung Galaxy phones. Sometimes I accidentally hit the sides when I wasn't supposed to, so that wasn't great, but pretty minor. I really love the shape of this phone. I think it's really slim, pretty heavy, but that doesn't really bother me. This gorgeous backing, this color here is called Aura Glow. Aura Black and Aura White aren't as interesting, but I just think this is fantastic to look at, really stands out. The Note 10 Plus has Gorilla Glass 6 on the back and on the front. Really beautiful, but it gets smudged up really quickly and you're gonna wanna put a case on it, so once you do, bye-bye pretty colors. Now, one of the first idiosyncrasies I noticed is that I turn off and use the phone differently now that the button is on the left. Samsung calls this the side key, and it's your power button, your lock button, and your Bixby button all in one. So if you're not a lefty already, you do need to retrain yourself how to unlock the phone and launch the camera. It did take me a couple days to get the hang of it, and when I switched back to a different phone, I noticed that I was pressing the Bixby button on the left when I wanted to unlock it. Thankfully, you can remap the side key to do other things. You can take off Bixby completely so that you can, in fact, power down the usual way. At first, I used these buttons by default, but I have actually pulled Bixby off, and now I just press and hold to power down the phone. The major elephant in the room with the Note 10 phones, of course, is that there is no more headphone jack. Samsung was a holdout for the headphone jack for a really long time, but the way the industry is going, it was only a matter of time before this was going to go away. It's the same thing with the embedded battery. Everybody wanted their battery to be removable, and Samsung was one of the last that did that, but now there are almost no removable batteries. I would say most of the time I didn't even really notice. That's because I used the wired headphones that came in the box, or I used my wireless Galaxy Buds. However, there are people who have invested in wired headphones, and for them it's going to be really annoying. They have to use a dongle. There is no dongle in the box, and that's something that Samsung could have really easily included, especially because they're so cheap. Samsung will sell you one for $10, for example. So you're either going to have to carry around a dongle that you might lose, or you're going to have to buy one. I tested 4 other dongles that worked perfectly fine, but there might be some that have some proprietary information and they may not work. Cameras are really important for every phone, and I really like the effort that Samsung has made to close the gap with some other rivals. We've got 3 lenses on the back plus an AR depth camera, and we've got a single lens on the front. Overall, the photos are really great, just like you would expect. With the exception of that depth sensor, the cameras are exactly the same as on the S10, but what makes this different is some of the software that Samsung has added to enhance the experience. My favorite is the dedicated night mode that comes baked into the Note 10 Plus. What this does is it basically takes a couple seconds to take in a very low light or nighttime scene, and then it processes it in a way that brightens it and also brings out a lot of details that you may not originally see. I still don't think that night mode is quite as good as competitor devices like the Pixel 3 and the Huawei P30 Pro. That's mostly because the photos are, in fact, a little too bright. For example, I still want my pictures to look like it's nighttime, but I think sometimes the Note 10 Plus can make that blue look like daytime sky, not evening sky. Also, there's no countdown clock, so you don't really know how long you're sitting there waiting for the photo to process, and it can feel like it's taking a long time or like it's not really working. There are a few more portrait mode options as well. That just makes it really fun. There's one called Big Circle, which makes your photos look really dreamy. This actually works pretty well for backlit shots. But an even bigger feature is one that Samsung calls Live Focus Video, and this creates portrait modes of videos. When I first tried it out on the Galaxy S10 5G, it wasn't very good, really blurred your arms and sides of your head. But on this phone, it was much better. You still get a little bit of that, but you can control it in the slider. I found that setting 5 works pretty well for me, and it does create this interesting effect. The focus is kept on your face, so if it gets a little bit soft around the edges or at your hands, it really doesn't matter as much. I still think there's work to do, but now I think the feature is actually usable and interesting. Another video feature will increase the audio sound as you zoom in closer to the subject. So for example, I was downtown and I saw some live music playing, but I was pretty far back in the crowd, and I used that zoomed in. When I replayed the video, I could hear the singer a lot better. I could really see this being useful if you're at a concert. One drawback, of course, is that as you zoom in, you can't really control the point of the zoom. So I was zooming in and getting the guy's chest and not his face. Also, the more you zoom in, the worse the resolution. One thing I really liked on the Note 10 Plus is what you can do with those videos once you've taken them. There's a baked-in video editor that lets you add music and transitions, and you can scrub really easily with the stylus that comes with the Note 10. You can write on the screen. There are just a lot of really cool tools that you can use to make this feel like a really complete package that you can edit on the phone and then publish and share out immediately. Zooming in is one area where Samsung can still improve its photography. You've got 2x optical zoom, you've got 10x digital zoom, but you also have rival phones out there that have 5x optical zoom, and it really makes a difference. You can be much further away and get a much better shot. For example, John Travolta was in the CNET office, and I zoomed in as far as I could, and it still just wasn't close enough for me because I was pretty far away, and I just thought that was a moment where I wanted to have the best zoom lens on the market. There's a fourth lens on the back of this phone. It is a 3D depth sensing lens. There is also a feature on the device called AR Doodle. The two, interestingly, are not connected. AR Doodle is a feature where you use the S Pen to draw all over a person's face or all over the world around you, and then you can interact with what you drew. So if you move the phone around, you can still see it there in space. It's fun, it's silly, I don't really know what you use it for, but it doesn't actually use the depth sensing camera at all. And the way you know that is because you can also use it on the front-facing camera, which doesn't have a depth sensor. So what the depth sensing camera is used for is an app called Quick Measure that lets you measure out something in front of you, like a rectangle, for example. It's not very developed, there's not much you can do with it other than save the capture. Also, there's a feature that's going to be coming out in the future called 3D Scan that lets you map an object and then use it for I don't know what. We weren't able to see it, so I didn't get a chance to test it. One of my biggest complaints with the Galaxy S10 phones was the in-screen fingerprint reader, not very accurate for me, but on the Note 10 Plus, Samsung has completely turned it around. It's really responsive, and I get in almost every time that I try to unlock the phone. So this has become something that I really actually enjoy using. A micro SD card slot is one advantage that the 10 Plus has over the 10. It will take up to 1 terabyte of external storage. You wouldn't have the Galaxy Note if you didn't have an S Pen, and I found it really easy to use, really easy to navigate with. I found that I didn't accidentally press the button as often as I have in years past, so whatever Samsung did to change the design, I think worked. To me, the S Pen is really comfortable to hold and use. I don't even really think about it most of the time. I'm just focused on what I'm doing. I like to use it to navigate around. I also like using it for more precise things, like taking a screenshot or really diving into a submenu. I find that I like to use the S Pen more when I know I'm going to be sitting comfortably for a while, even just to give my hands a break, because I do a lot of typing, my thumbs always hurt, so it's nice to just kind of switch it up and do something else instead. And when I'm walking and I know I'm on the go, that's when I put the S Pen away and I just start using this like a regular phone. One of the things that I keep coming back to is using the S Pen to just jot down a shopping list or a phone number or an email address or the name of a restaurant that somebody mentioned to come back to it later. There's a new feature called handwriting to text where you can write the note and then tap it and have the phone convert it into text, which you can even share out to a Microsoft Word file. This is not the way that I personally use the phone, but I think it's great that it exists, and I thought that most of the time it was actually a pretty accurate conversion. Not all the time though, especially with numbers, but I have pretty messy writing and I was surprised with the accuracy. Last year, Samsung added Bluetooth Low Energy functionality in the S Pen, so you could use it as a remote. And there's a little battery in here that charges up when you put the stylus back in the phone. This year, it added gesture support for some apps. So for example, if you are in the camera app, you can press and hold the button and then flick your wrist in certain directions to do different things. This makes a lot of sense if you've got the phone set up sort of like a tripod. You're trying to either take a picture of yourself from far away without asking a stranger to do it, or you're trying to take a group shot, or maybe you even want to take a picture of an animal in nature and you're hiding behind a tree. And I was surprised with how well it works. Took me a while to get the hang of the gestures. It's a lot easier if you just sort of like flick quickly. You can also zoom in and zoom out. Samsung says that you make this big semicircle, but I found that you could just press the button, sort of flick your wrist one direction or another and hold, and it will zoom in and zoom out for you. This will also work with apps like Spotify and with a lot of the Samsung native apps. And of course, there is an API that is open so that other third-party app makers can also build in functionality. The Note 10 Plus has a really big battery, 4,300 milliamp hours, and it shows. Battery life will definitely take you all day. When I was testing this phone, I woke up at 6 in the morning, threw everything at it, took tons of photos and videos, was constantly online reading, uploading, downloading, and it lasted me until 1 in the morning with battery life to spare. And it charges up really, really quickly using the 25-watt charger that comes in the box. Consistently charged up from 0 to 100 in 65 minutes, which is incredible. Samsung will also sell you a 45-watt charger aftermarket. I haven't had a chance to try that one out though. Wireless charging also gets faster, increasing from 12 watts to 15 watts. So you're going to see some improvements there. And of course, there's wireless power share built in, so you can charge up another device. The Note 10 Plus's screen is really big, and that's fantastic, but if you want to use an even larger screen, you have two options to connect this phone to your computer. The first is called Link to Windows. If you've got a Windows 10 computer, then you can see your photos, your messages, and your notifications right on that device. Right now, it's a little bit limited to just those three functions, but in the future, Samsung and Microsoft say that you'll be able to mirror even more from this device onto your Windows 10 machine. Link to Windows is on the right track, but I think what's even more useful is Samsung DeX. I wasn't very impressed with it when it first got its start. It was really clunky, but now it's so much more streamlined. You can just take that USB-C cable and plug the phone into either a Windows or a Mac and just see the entirety of your phone there. So you can see all of your apps and interact with them. You can drag and drop files from your computer onto the phone. It's a whole new world that I think is going to make productivity a lot more interesting when you want to mostly just work off of your device. So instead of typing away on the phone or using the stylus, I actually have this big screen and all of the benefits that come with the laptop. I think it's going to make productivity a lot more interesting, and I think it's going to keep you from transferring things or emailing things back and forth. You've got the files all on your device. I think that Samsung probably has business users in mind when it comes to DeX, but as we spend more time living our lives on our phone, it's going to become more useful to have this sort of interface. When you take a look at the Note 10 Plus overall, there are a lot of little refinements that add up into this really great device. This killer screen, that awesome battery life with super fast charging, and also these great new camera features that are going to make your photos and your videos terrific. It's also really expensive, $1,100, and phone prices just keep going up. But we also can't ignore other phones, including the smaller Galaxy Note 10, which costs $150 less, and there's of course the Google Pixel 4 around the corner, and Apple's next iPhone. As I've said before, this is one of the best phones that Samsung's made in years, and all of its energy, effort, and focus have really paid off. There's so much to like about it, and not a lot to dislike. I think that if you're on the fence, I really love it, I recommend it, and I think that you're gonna love it too. Well everyone, thanks for watching. What did you think of the Note 10 Plus? Are you gonna get it? Are you gonna maybe hold out for another phone? Let me know in the comments, be sure to subscribe, and check back to CNET for even more Note 10 and Note 10 Plus videos.
This is the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus. You know the Note, right? It was the first big phone, but now every phone is big. Then it was the most powerful big phone, but nearly all big Android phones have really great specs now, so what's left for the Note? Samsung will tell you that there are a bunch of things, but really there's just one thing. The S Pen, the stylus. See, the Note starts at $1,100, which is hundreds of dollars more than comparable phones, even phones that Samsung makes. So you have to ask yourself, how badly do you want this stylus? Now, before we get too far into this review, I know that the Note is about more than just having a stylus. Is there something you want on a smartphone? Because this thing has it. Massive screen, top flight specs, all-day battery, good cameras, DeX, beautiful looks, a depth sensor for AR. Except for the fact that it's missing a headphone jack, this really is the everything phone. It's even giving you a choice of two sizes, this larger Note 10 Plus and then a smaller regular Note 10. Now, we haven't had time to fully review the smaller Note, but if you're not a spec hype beast, I think it might be more interesting for you. It's not that much bigger than a Galaxy S10, and I bet most people wouldn't miss the extra RAM and battery life that you get on the big Note 10. Really though, this Note 10 Plus is the true Note. It's about the same size as last year's Note 9, and that size is big. It has a 6.8-inch HD Plus AMOLED screen, and it is beautiful. The Note's display might not have the high refresh rate that you can get on the OnePlus 7 Pro, but that's literally the only thing that's missing from it. It is bright and color accurate, and it goes all the way to the edge of the phone. This thing looks like the future in the way that most phones do not. This screen will spoil you. It's also the true Note because it's the one with the best specs. But again, beefy specs don't set the Note apart anymore, not the way that they used to. So let's talk about the stylus. Samsung added a gyroscope and an accelerometer to it, so you can wave it around to control the camera and maybe other apps eventually. What you do is you hold the button down and then you make these little gestures, and then the camera does stuff like zoom in or switch modes or take a photo. It's neat, I guess, but you know, it's kind of a gimmick. The other thing that's pretty gimmicky, but it's stupid fun, is AR doodles. So in the first mode, you can draw on people's faces, and the mustaches and beards and horns or whatever stay pinned to their faces when you or they move around, and it works pretty well. But the one I really enjoy is doing it in the everywhere mode. It lets you draw shapes in like arbitrary space, and they stay pinned to where you were drawing them pretty well. It's not quite as good as Tilt Brush, but it's way better than I expected. Now, I enjoyed both of these things quite a lot, but if anybody uses this more than 3 times, I would be completely shocked. Now, the real upgrade for the stylus is actually in the software on the phone itself, in Samsung Notes. You can quickly take a note without turning the phone on, just like before, but now those handwritten notes are searchable, and you can extract the text out of them via OCR. It works way better than I expected, even with my garbage handwriting. There are a million other things that the stylus does. It can magnify stuff on the screen. It can make an app into a weird little picture-in-picture box that you can hover over. It is also the best screenshot drawing thing that you can get on a phone. At this point, you're either giddy with excitement over this little stick, or you're shrugging. And that's fair. I mean, look, here are the only important reasons to spend hundreds of dollars more for the Note 10 Plus over the Galaxy S10 Plus. Slightly bigger screen, slightly bigger battery with slightly faster charging, and the stylus. That's it. Okay, so there are a bunch of other things that the Note can do, and I'm gonna get into all of them, but before that, I have to admit there's one other thing about the Note 10 Plus that I really like besides the stylus. It's just really nice. It's like a luxury object, like a Rolex or an Eames chair. You're paying more for the brand name and just for how well made this object is. I mean, Samsung has poured everything that it has learned about making hardware into the Note 10 Plus. The glass, curves and melts into the metal rail. The screen goes fully edge to edge, and the fingerprint sensor is underneath the screen. The stylus is unibody now, and hell, Samsung even made the ports lineup. Just as a physical object, there is no more beautiful or well-made phone. And if you care about having the nicest thing, this is it. Now, the cameras are essentially unchanged from the Galaxy S10, which means that they're really good. Now, this is the part where you expect me to say that the Pixel 3 is slightly better, and well, it is, and it isn't. In challenging or low light situations, or if you really start pixel peeping, yes, the Pixel 3 is better. But the Note 10 has a telephoto and an ultra-wide lens, and the camera app actually launches faster. So as a whole package, I actually enjoy using this more, at least in good light.
This wide angle is fun, right? The answer is yes. Yes, it is.
Now, the Note 10 Plus also is probably the very best Android phone for taking video, but that doesn't mean that it holds up to an iPhone XS. So Samsung has added a few new features to make video better. The first is live focus, which blurs the background in video, and it's bad. Don't use it. They've also slightly improved video stabilization. I really like the other thing they put in, which is a bare bones video editor. It's actually not bad. It's almost what I wish iMovie was on the iPhone. And using a stylus to edit video on a phone is way easier than using your big fat fingers. The last thing is a zoom mic option, which tries to make the audio from the thing that you're zoomed in on louder than the audio that's near the phone. And it works, sorta, I don't know. It's not magic. Here, check it out.
Becca is speaking, and I'm speaking at the same time. And now we're zooming in on her, and I'm continuing to speak while she continues to speak, and I am also speaking, and then we zoom away from her as she's speaking, and now we should hear my voice more than her voice. She's just getting real tired of saying the alphabet.
Now we come to the part where I talk about a bunch of Samsung features, because there are a lot of Samsung features. Let's start with DeX, which is that thing that you plug your phone into a monitor and then it turns it into a mini computer. It works in a whole new way this year, exclusively on the Note 10. There is now a DeX app for both Windows and Mac that lets you have a window for doing all of your phone stuff right on your computer, which is the thing that you actually carry with you instead of a, rando monitor. DeX is okay. It's not super fast, but it is a really convenient way to do texting directly from your computer or drag and drop files between your phone and your computer, but it's much better in theory than it is in execution. You see, the thing is, actually, you know what? I have a lot to say about DeX and this whole dream of making your phone into your computer, so I'm gonna do another video on that next week. For this review, what you should know is that it could be useful in a pinch, but it's definitely not a reason to buy this phone. All right, what else has Samsung packed into this thing? Well, a ton, actually. There's a depth camera in the back here that can measure the size of stuff and eventually is gonna let you scan 3D objects and put them into your own AR. I didn't get to test that, but I wouldn't expect the quality is gonna be great. There's also a new version of their game mode that makes it easier to tweak settings and also grab screenshots. There's just also a million other Samsung settings for the lock screen and the edge panel and all the rest. And then there's Bixby. Bixby's still here, but Samsung did get rid of the dedicated button for it. It's built into the power button, but actually understanding what's gonna happen when you press the power button gets a little bit complicated, even with the new configuration settings. And also, Bixby still isn't good, which means you're gonna still end up using the Google Assistant instead. Samsung has also partnered with Microsoft, and so there's a bunch of Microsoft stuff in here. It links up to the Your Phone app on Windows, and Microsoft's smartphone apps are pre-installed. And by the way, that means that there are now 3 email apps on this thing out of the box: Gmail, Samsung Mail, and Outlook. Cool. Samsung has gotten better at software with One UI, and I don't hate it anymore, but you do have to learn a bunch of Samsung ways of doing things, and have to deal with choosing between Samsung apps or Google apps or now Microsoft apps. For experts, it's totally manageable, but for everybody else, it's a real hassle. And of course, Samsung takes way too long to get the full version upgrades of Android pushed out to its devices. It's doing security updates faster now, and One UI does so much that you might not be sad about not getting Android Q right away, but it's still annoying. There's so much stuff in the Note 10 Plus that it's dizzying, and Samsung's software just barely manages to contain it all and keep it comprehensible. It really does have everything, except a headphone jack. And I really like some of it, and I also hate some of it, but none of it is a reason to either buy or skip this phone. See, the Note 10 Plus is a smartphone that goes to 11 for $1,100. But again, there are Android phones and even Samsung phones that cost hundreds of dollars less and get you nearly all the way there. The OnePlus 7 Pro is still amazing, and the Pixel 4 is only a couple of months away. Plus, the Galaxy S10 Plus is not all that different from this thing. Look, some people just want the nicest thing, and this very clearly is the very nicest Android phone by far. I love how luxurious the hardware is. Look at this color, but I can't say that's a great reason to buy this phone. So it really comes down to this little thing, the S Pen. The thing is though, unless you really want a stylus, I don't think it's worth spending the extra money for the Note 10 Plus. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'm really excited I got to just review a phone instead of talk about the future of computers, but I'm going to talk about the future of computers next week because I'm making the DeX video. So let me know in the comments what you think of DeX and what your questions are about it, and we'll see you next week.
The Galaxy Note has always been about overkill, in a sense. It ushered in the era of the huge smartphone, and it served as a testbed for some of Samsung's strangest and most ambitious ideas. In other words, any new Galaxy Note has a lot to live up to. If you're a power user, someone who likes using big screens for more than just watching things, then congratulations. I'm willing to say that the Galaxy Note 10 is the big screen successor that you've been waiting for. But if you never felt much pull towards notes in the first place, nothing here in the Note 10 Plus is going to change your mind. It is ultimately just a slightly newer, slightly better Galaxy Note. In this case though, slightly better is all it takes to remain the king of the big smartphone hill. Of course, you're gonna have to shell out some considerable cash for it. This standard Note 10 Plus I've been testing costs $1,100, and for that you get a Snapdragon 855 chipset with 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of internal storage, all of which lead to performance that is basically just as good as any other premium Android phone you've heard about this year. That's really the thing about Galaxy Notes though. Impressive performance is just a given, it's table stakes. To get a sense of what really makes this thing interesting, we're gonna have to take a look a little closer. Just look at this screen, or I guess I should say, try to tear your eyes away from it. This is a 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED screen, and true to form for Samsung, it absolutely shines. And I mean that both figuratively and literally because its brightness maxes out at 1200 nits outdoors, so it's actually really great for framing up photos and reading under harsh sunlight. I also have to say I don't think I've enjoyed watching videos on a phone as much as I have on the Note 10 Plus. A lot of you were curious about whether the hole Samsung cut out of the screen to accommodate the 10 megapixel front camera would get annoying. The answer is, not really. It's always there, and even though it's smaller than cutouts in phones like the Galaxy S10, it is pretty noticeable when you're looking at a brightly lit scene. Most of the time though, it's just so far off to the side that my eyes kind of naturally glaze over it. I do have to say though that not all apps know to take up the full screen, so you'll have to do a little extra work to make sure apps like Netflix expand to fill the display around that camera hole. Thanks to Samsung's clever design work, the Note 10 Plus gives you more screen without a dramatically bigger body. In fact, I would say it's actually in some ways easier to manage than last year's Note 9. I mean, yes, it's still a big phone and almost certainly one you're going to need two hands to use, but even then it's lighter than the Note 9, so it feels surprisingly manageable considering the size. Not every design tweak Samsung made here is worth celebrating though. The screen's touch-sensitive edges, for example, they follow the curve of the glass further down the sides of the phone than on devices like the S10 Plus, so it's easier to accidentally touch icons and perform actions with the fleshy part of my hand than I'd like. And I know, I'm sorry, it sounds like I'm nitpicking here, and this might just be a me problem, but this happens all the time, and it's getting pretty old. Also, while I'm glad Samsung finally got rid of that Bixby button, which so often went ignored and unused, I'm still a little frustrated by Samsung's decision to put all of the phone's physical controls on the left side. It runs counter to basically every smartphone I've ever used, and it takes quite a bit of getting used to. I'm also pretty miffed that Samsung got rid of the headphone jack here, and I know what you're probably thinking, Bluetooth headphones are ubiquitous now, and removing that meant Samsung could squeeze a marginally bigger battery inside. That's fine, that's true, but I'm just never going to accept the death of the headphone jack. A Of course, what really makes a Note is the S Pen, and this one is slightly different than the one we got last year. It's a little shorter and a little thicker, which actually makes it easier to grip while writing. More important is the accelerometer inside, which makes these new air actions possible. Now, these are gestures that build on the Bluetooth remote functionality of the Note 9's S Pen. Now, instead of just clicking the S Pen button to perform specific actions, you can also swish and flick the S Pen through the air to access more of them. Right now, though, you're not really going to use these magic wand gestures for a whole lot. I mean, apart from using them to change tracks in whatever media app you're using at the time, they're mostly meant for manipulating the camera. We've talked about this before. Gesturing left and right changes camera modes, up and down switches between the cameras themselves, and drawing semicircles in the air controls the zoom. All of these work well enough after a bit of practice, but they only really seem helpful in certain situations, like if your Note 10 is mounted on a tripod or quite a bit away from you. It's fine and arguably helpful in that case, but most people, I get the sense, aren't going to bother with that. The only non-Samsung app I had installed that supports air actions is Google Chrome, which you can set up so you can flick up and down to scroll through web pages. In the week I've tested the Note 10 Plus, none of these air actions ever really felt essential. It kind of feels like Samsung developed them just because they needed the S Pen to do something new this year. With all that said, there is definite potential. If developers give us thoughtful, nuanced ways to use these gestures and perform more specific actions, I'll gladly change my mind. Thankfully, the Note 10's S Pen handwriting recognition has been pretty great. When you're done writing a note, you can tap a button at the top of the screen to convert all of that into plain text, which is, I should point out, not flawless, but it's smart enough that most of my terrible handwriting was correctly transcribed on the first shot, and besides, it's pretty easy to go back and fix those few errors once you're done. The phone also starts interpreting and indexing your handwriting as soon as you've saved the note. So within a moment, you can search and make sure that you've added laundry detergent to your shopping list or whatever. It's these more mundane S Pen improvements, not air actions, that make the Note 10 Plus worth the price of admission for some, and that's honestly kind of where I am right now. And then there are the cameras, which honestly haven't changed that much since the days of the Galaxy S10. We're still working with 3 rear cameras, a 16 megapixel ultra-wide, a 12 megapixel wide, and a 12 megapixel telephoto. Aside from some very minor changes, these shoot photos just as well as the S10s did, so expect loads of detail, lots of bright, vibrant colors, and a little bit of HDR that always ensures that parts of your landscapes aren't blown out. Actually, speaking of landscapes, I've always thought that Samsung's cameras were better for lush, detailed scenes and buildings and objects than skin tones, and that's still true. I also have to point out that the Pixel 3's computational photography chops arguably produce nicer photos, if only just a bit, with less fuss. But the flexibility that these 3 cameras provide me, the Note 10 Plus as a camera, simply can't be dismissed. Sadly, the similar camera setup here means the Note 10 Plus still has the same low light limitations as the S10s. The main 12 megapixel camera is the best of the bunch, and the telephoto isn't bad either thanks to its new wider aperture, but your ultra-wide shots are going to turn out very soft, with little detail and a lot of motion blur. Even the built-in night mode isn't much to write home about. I mean, it's basically just a long exposure that produces a brighter photo, but not one with any more detail or nuance or verve. It's not particularly good, and when it comes to night shooting, companies like Google and Huawei, they blow Samsung out of the water. The biggest improvements to the camera actually all have to do with video. A new live focus mode lets you drown your backgrounds in bokeh or add a neat black and white or glitch effect, which honestly look better than any of the other options. I'm just as surprised as you are, but the standard bokeh and the quote big circle bokeh options look unnatural and honestly pretty unsatisfying, especially when you start to crank up the blur levels. The Super Steady Video mode is far more useful and noticeably better than what we got in the Galaxy S10s. You can't zoom in or anything while you're walking around and shooting the super stable footage, but the results are definitely impressive. Meanwhile, there is a new built-in video editor and works well enough for quick social sharing videos. Samsung's suggestion that this is good enough for full-on creators seems kind of delusional. It's fine for piecing together simple projects with a little background music and some transitions, but I would not want to use it for more than that. If you're really serious about trying to create decent looking videos on your Galaxy Note 10, I would probably tell you to give up on the native video editor entirely and use something like Adobe Premiere Rush, which has a specific version for Samsung Galaxy devices, and if nothing else, makes the option of moving your clips around using the S Pen feel that much more pleasant. The camera's zoom mic feature is actually a little more interesting. It allows you to zoom in on a subject, and the Note's directional microphones will cycle in and out of use to make sure you can focus in on the sound from whatever you're shooting. It works, but the effect is pretty subtle, and after a while you kind of have to make decisions about audio versus video quality. For example, Samsung says that zooming in 4x should raise the volume of your target by about 9 decibels, but 4x zoom video can be pretty grainy under the wrong kind of light, and zooming in while you're shooting these videos does not look very smooth at all. Oh, and there's AR Doodle, this year's big augmented reality gimmick. I was sure it wouldn't be much more than a fun little party trick, and it did keep a gaggle of kids at a birthday party entertained for a while, but I did ultimately find some more practical uses for it. I've been slowly putting up art in my apartment, and I've used AR Doodle to roughly plot out where I want things to go on my walls. The things you draw in the world don't seem to stick to things easily, so the vague rectangles I drew hung in the air instead of on the wall where I really needed them, but it was enough to get a sense of how my apartment could look. Ultimately, AR Doodle feels mostly like a toy, and I'll never get tired of using it to draw on people's faces, but this is one of those sleeper features that could come in surprisingly handy when you least expect it. I could say the same about the new included AR Measure app, which basically does what the name says. After a bit of panning around and calibration, you can measure things in front of the camera. These measurements seem accurate enough, and it's nice enough to have, I guess, but I don't think I needed that, do you? Thankfully, other gimmicks do come in a little more helpful, like DeX, which you can, as usual, use to turn your Note 10 Plus into something like a full-blown PC. Samsung's DeX feature is far from new, but this year, you don't have to count on just having a separate monitor laying around to use with it. After you install a companion app on your Mac or PC, you can connect the Note to your machine with a USB-C cable and get the full desktop experience right there. And I know what you're thinking. The idea of using a desktop interface on top of a desktop interface on your actual computer sounds more than a little silly, and it is. But it is undeniably great for transferring files between your machines and even making calls while you're handling email in a standard web browser. The thing I do have to point out is that I was trying DeX on a Mac, which sort of requires that you have Android File Transfer, the app, installed on your Mac to start with. And because I did, my experience was pretty much painless. But the Android File Transfer app on the Mac is notoriously finicky, so if you're trying to set this up from scratch, you might not have the easiest time. Now, using all of these features will take a toll on the Note 10 Plus's 4300 mAh battery, and I have to admit, I expected a little more longevity than I actually got. In general, I could count on the Note 10 Plus to stick around for a little under a day and a half on a single charge, though there have been days, like today, where I've blown through the battery entirely before going to bed. I don't think that's going to be the norm for most people, but I have to let you know that this is not the kind of phone you can expect 2 days of use out of. Normally, this is where I would wrap things up, but I have to take this moment to tell you that even though we're just a few days away from the Note's official launch, some things were just not ready for us to test. As of the day we're shooting this video, Play Galaxy Link, which lets you stream games from your home PC to your Note, that doesn't work. That Weirdo 3D scanner that Samsung demoed on stage at Unpacked, that's not available either. We're coming down to the wire here, and hopefully Samsung will have them up and running in time for you to read about in our full written review. I wouldn't get too hung up on that stuff though. Even without them, the Galaxy Note 10 is probably the best big screen phone money can buy. Even if you don't love the idea of using a stylus regularly, the Note 10 Plus's blend of power and a truly tremendous screen it's just kind of intoxicating at times. Yes, there are more than a few things here that require getting used to or don't feel as polished as they should, but the foundation is solid enough that those issues don't dramatically detract from the experience of using the Note 10 Plus. If you just want a big phone, you can get one that's just as fast for less money, and you're probably gonna have a great time with it. But if you want a big phone that does more than just the smartphone basics, and you don't mind dealing with some occasionally annoying quirks, you just can't do better than the Galaxy Note 10. For now, anyway. 2019 is still far from over, and we still have plenty of big phone launches to look forward to.
One, two, three.
So when I review a phone, I try to pull out a narrative. Why was this phone made? Who is this phone for? And with the Galaxy Note 9, that narrative was in praise of incrementalism. Effectively, the Note 9 was just better than any Note before it. It had a bigger screen, a bigger battery, more storage than pretty much any phone at the time. And the Note 10 Plus isn't all that different. It's still got a bigger screen, a bigger battery, faster storage. I was inclined to call this in praise of incrementalism part 2. But you know, the more I thought about it, the more I felt like these improvements were driven by design first, not necessarily by sheer improvement. Let me explain what I mean. When you look at the Note 10 Plus, I do think it's one of the prettiest phones Samsung has ever made. You've obviously got that beautiful Aura Glow color on the back. It's thinner than pretty much any phone Samsung's ever made, and you've got this wrapped glass around the side. But all of these things were design forward thinking, not necessarily that power user gamer type phone that we've seen in previous years. So this phone is thinner than the Galaxy Note 9, and I can't really fault them for that. Of course, they're going to try to make their phone thinner and more beautiful. And it's got a 4,300 mAh battery versus the 4,000 mAh battery that we saw in the Galaxy Note 9. But I think a lot of us were expecting something that was going to be totally shocking to the audience. If you look at marketing for last year's Galaxy Note 9, you had big posters that said 4,000 mAh and 1 terabyte. They were all shock value things that really showed that the Galaxy Note 9 was the power user device. Samsung was still able to iterate on the specs, they just didn't iterate as much as I think a lot of us expected them to, because they were trying to make the phone more beautiful and make it for more people. Here's another design-centric thing. They removed some ports and buttons. So on the Galaxy Note 9, you had the power button on the right and the Bixby button on the left. Well, they've pretty much removed the Bixby button and they've moved the power button to the left, so now you've got a phone with a right side that has no buttons at all. And I thought that it would be weird to turn the phone on with my index finger on the left side of the phone, but it actually feels really natural and I don't find myself missing that power button that was on the right side of the phone. And in their effort to make that single slab of glass, they also got rid of the headphone jack. And I'm probably going to rail on them for a very long time about this, because the headphone jack is part of what made the Samsung Note a Samsung Note. But again, Samsung's trying to go after the mass market for this phone. So they're trying to have the least amount of buttons possible to make it as beautiful as possible. They're trying to have the least amount of ports as possible, for better or for worse. Now, I did do a poll on my Twitter about whether or not people cared that they were dropping the headphone jack, and 55% of people said that they didn't really care. And these are all hardcore Android users who would probably care more about the headphone jack than the average consumer. So this is just further evidence that Samsung is trying to go for more of a mass market appeal with this phone. And again, this is kind of a weird review for me to do, because by saying that Samsung is going design forward and trying to appeal to more people, it kind of sounds like I'm railing on them. But I still really like this phone, and you can't fault Samsung for trying to make their phone more beautiful. If you move to the back of the phone, you've got that single slab of glass with the beautiful Aura Glow color or other colors that are definitely going to appeal to a wider market. You've got the triple camera array that looks really nice. They've moved the array into a better position to be more appealing. And the cameras are still really good. They're pretty much the exact same camera set that they were on the Galaxy S10 Plus. Now, if you look at the screen, the design-first decision-making is pretty apparent there too. You've got a smaller aperture in the front-facing camera, which is going to be a little bit less light because they wanted to make the hole small enough to fit that bigger display. And it does look gorgeous. It's a gorgeous display. It is one of the best displays they've ever made, but that is a trade-off that you have to make if you're going to make a full-screen display like that. And the screen is undeniably pretty massive. It's 6.8 inches, which is like one of the biggest phone screens that I've used. But it doesn't doesn't feel too big, weirdly enough. It does have the same footprint as the Galaxy Note 9, so it feels like you're holding a Note 9 with just a lot more screen real estate, which is really nice on an everyday basis. And that's not to say that the front-facing camera is bad. I actually think it's better than it was on the Galaxy Note 9. It's got better color, and it seems like it does a little bit less skin smoothing. And the cameras on the back are the same as they were on the Galaxy S10 Plus. They're still very versatile. You've got the ultra-wide lens, the regular lens, and the telephoto lens. I still feel like they do a little bit too much skin smoothing and way too much noise reduction, so I'm not in love with these cameras, but they definitely seem to have made the color a little bit better. And yes, performance is perfectly great. It's still got 12 gigs of RAM, really fast storage, and it's Snapdragon 855. Now, if they were really going after the power user demographic, they probably would have put the 855 Plus in here, and I personally think that would have been a really good way to draw in those power users, to really differentiate the Note line from the Galaxy S line. But again, I think Samsung is making these phones for everybody, not necessarily the power users anymore. And I guess the last thing we gotta talk about is the S Pen. And yeah, they technically made the S Pen a little bit better this year. They added a gyroscope, which allows you to swipe through your photos. It allows you to zoom in on images, but I don't really find it that useful. There are some cool features like AR Doodle, which allows you to doodle in AR and add drawings onto things in real life, which is pretty cool. It's relatively gimmicky, but I enjoyed it. With this year's S Pen, you can do things like convert notes to text and send them straight to Microsoft Word. And for someone that's a digital artist or someone that takes notes all the time, this is a really invaluable feature. And now we finally get down to price. And the Galaxy Note 10 Plus starts at $1,100. And I kind of think Samsung was a little bit between a rock and a hard place with this phone, because the Galaxy S10 Plus started at $1,000. And they couldn't really make this phone cheaper than the Galaxy S10 Plus. Now, yes, that phone did launch 6 months ago, but its MSRP is still $1,000. So it's kind of difficult for Samsung to charge the same or less when this phone has significantly more features and it's a Note. It's supposed to be the more expensive phone. Now, if you're a power user that wants it all, there are other phones that'll probably satisfy you pretty well, like the Asus ROG Phone 2. That thing does have an 855 Plus. It also has a ton of storage and a ton of RAM, and it will probably do you just fine. But I feel like Samsung's going after all the users who want the power, not the power users who want it all. And that's especially evident in the regular Galaxy Note 10. That thing has a 1080p screen, it's got a smaller battery, and it doesn't have micro SD card expansion. But you know what? I don't think regular people are really going to notice or care about those things. They just want a beautiful phone that does everything really well, and if it has a pen, that's good enough for them. Alright guys, that's been about it for this review. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comment section below. Also go over to AndroidAuthority.com. I've got like a 4,000, 5,000 word review over there, so you can read the thing in its entirety. We've also got a ton of photos and other stuff over there as well. So until the next video, I'll catch you later.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tim here again, still talking about the Galaxy Note 10 and Galaxy Note 10 Plus. Yesterday we unboxed it, so now, like many of you, you're probably unboxing it, getting the phone set up. So let's go over the first 10 things to do with the Galaxy Note 10 and Note 10 Plus. The phones are essentially identical. You know, the Note 10 a bit smaller, lacks a few things such as expandable storage, but in terms of software, S Pen, things like that, it's all pretty much the same. So I can cover both devices with just having the 10 Plus in-house. So let's get straight to it. You know, we're not going to talk about those initial things that you're going to want to do while you're setting up the phone, such as logging into a Samsung account so you can download themes and icons, you know, logging into your Google account, you know, come on. So let's go ahead. We're going to talk about some more, I wouldn't say advanced things, but you know, just stuff you should probably think about doing as soon as you get it booted up. So first thing I would say, this is not part of my official list. I was actually just thinking about it when I was doing the video, but get yourself a cleaning cloth, because this backside, while it is very pretty, it gets it attracts fingerprints like no one's business. So get yourself a little microfiber cloth. Keep that in mind. So during setup, you're going to set up your first screen lock. And of course, being that this phone has a ultrasonic fingerprint reader, we suggest setting up the ultrasonic fingerprint reader. So that'll be your right thumb or left thumb, however you want to do that. But in the case that you want to set up a second fingerprint for unlocking, say someone else is holding the phone, they're like, hey, can you unlock it? And you just reach over, say with your index or something. It's always good just to have multiple fingerprints saved on the phone. So in order to do that, you can go right under biometrics and security. Kind of interesting that it's not coupled with lock screen. I don't know, that might be kind of different, but I guess it's okay that Samsung kind of just has them both in their own section. So underneath biometrics and security, you're going to see fingerprints. And then right here, if we get right in there, add fingerprint. And so, of course, it's just like setting up your initial fingerprint. You're going to scan it, et cetera, et cetera. We just usually recommend setting up a second one just in case, you never know. Also, instead of having fingerprint 1, fingerprint 2, et cetera, not knowing what they are, you can tap on those, change the name. So this one is my right thumb. And booyah. And I can save that. Now I know that's my right thumb. As you start adding more, it's probably a good thing to label them just so it's not thing 1, thing 2, thing 3 sort of thing. So keep that in mind. Of course, you can do different things besides just setting up fingerprints. You can add your facial recognition. You can, of course, once we get out of there, there are, if you go back and see, this is where the lock screen versus biometrics and security gets sort of weird, because if you go back into the lock screen, then that's where you actually control pattern plus fingerprints or pin plus fingerprints. It's weird kind of how they separated them. The next thing, part of that with just securing your phone in general, is adding smart lock. We love smart lock. Smart lock, it can detect on body, it can have trusted places, so whenever I'm at home and the GPS from the phone detects that I'm in the area of my home, it's going to just remain unlocked, so I don't have to keep unlocking it myself. You can also add trusted devices, so via Bluetooth, say my Galaxy Buds are connected, whenever those are connected and they're in my ears, I won't have to unlock the device. So, beautiful thing to have. Moving on here. We're going to stay in the display section for quite a while, because I feel like more than half of what I'm going to talk about is actually right in this dedicated display section. So first thing I want to talk about is, as soon as I opened the phone and got it out of the box, I noticed that the screen mode was sort of like kind of odd looking, maybe more a bit yellowish. I actually thought the blue light filter was on out of the box. It wasn't. It was actually just set to this natural mode. So this is all personal preference, of course, but my opinion, you want to go vivid, keep it in between cool and warm. You could even, I don't think this display would be hindered at all by having it on vivid plus a bit more to the cool side. This way, to my eye, white looks white. Having that more natural, you're seeing a bit more yellow, might be hard to see through the camera, but either way, I'm going vivid. Going right the middle between cool and warm. Of course, you can get some examples for what your display is going to look like in different scenarios. Of course, there's advanced settings. You can mess with the RGB values. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it's not really necessary unless you really want to fine tune what you're looking at. Moving on right down, or going back up, I suppose, from the screen mode. I want to talk about scheduling blue light filters and night mode, of course. So the blue light filter, I just have it set to come on at a custom time. So 10 at night, it automatically turns on. It's going to crank down the blues and up that orange. So I'm going to show you here. So the blue light filter on this phone, very effective, I would say. I turn the opacity all the way up. I've just got it scheduled for 10 p.m. to 8:15 the next day. And of course, if you give the blue light filter access to your phone's location, it will automatically turn on via sunset and sunrise. So pretty nifty. Heading on down, night mode. I've got the same thing, so you can always have night mode, like always on. But I've just got it to do all turn on as scheduled. And so again, the start time 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. the next day. I'll just always see sort of the blackness, the awesomeness, I would say, that night mode that we've been talking about with Android 10, etc., etc. So just a nice little touch, having those things scheduled, that way you just don't have to keep manually turning them on and off via the system settings up here or anything like that. Just don't even mess with it. Next thing, under display, I want to talk about display resolution or screen resolution. Samsung gives you 3 options: HD+, Full HD+, and WQHD+, the 3040 by 1440. It's the max resolution for the display. I've got a WQHD because I'm right in the middle of my battery testing and all that stuff to see if it really even makes a difference. For the average user, it's probably not. I would recommend just sticking on Full HD Plus and then applying that. Out of the box, it's going to come Full HD Plus. The human eye is not really going to differentiate between the 2280 by the 3040, and especially like the games you're going to be playing, the content you're going to be watching, a lot of that's not really going to be in 4K or even 2K or 1440, whatever you want to call it. So you could probably just stick on the Full HD Plus and be just fine. However, that option is there. That's what I've had it on. Everything looks good. Of course, my 4K wallpapers look incredible on the display. You know, the camera probably doesn't do it justice, but this is a really, really gorgeous display, and I just wanted to take full advantage of all that resolution. So something you can keep in mind. Also in display, of course, is the navigation bar. If you watched our unboxing video, you'll know that one of the first things I do is change up this navigation bar. Samsung does this weird thing of having the back button on the right side. No offense to Samsung, that's just not how I roll. So navigation bar, first thing I do, I go to this bottom option, back on the left, home, and then recent apps. Of course, if you didn't know this about Samsung's kind of launcher, the navigation bar, it's got that same sort of kind of pie navigation mode set in there if you swipe on the, or kind of use that as the pill. And then also you can long press on the recents, pull up your recents and all that, and just kind of swiping from that middle, you can get through all of your recent applications like that, just like you can in Android Pie and Q if you're using the pill and all that good stuff. So just a nice little thing to keep in mind. From here, we could actually long press to get to our home screen settings, but this menu is actually accessible if you go from display and then scroll down and then home screen. So same menu, you can just access it 2 different ways. First thing I do is I mess with the home screen grid, I up it. So out of the box it comes 4x6, I go 5x5. That way my icons get a little bit smaller, I can fit a few more things on there. I can feel like I can sort of customize the size of my widgets a bit more. That's just something I prefer. But again, personal preference as always. You can do the same with the app screen grid. Again, it comes 4x6 out of the box, I put it 5x5. Just gives me more kind of visibility of things without having to scroll or anything like that. So also in the home screen, you've got a whole bunch of different settings you can choose from. I keep app icon badges on. So one thing I would recommend, swipe down for notification panel. This is a large phone, and if you don't have this option enabled, when you swipe down, it's going to actually open up your app drawer. I can show you that real quick if we do that fancy move right there. Home screen, and then we're going to swipe down from notification panel. So this is off out of the box. So, and what happens when it is off is when you swipe down, it opens up your app drawer, and you just keep swiping up. Up swipe is the same, down swipe is the same. So what I do, not a huge fan of that. Home screen, swipe down for notification panel. So when I'm one-handed, I don't have to reach all the way up here to drag that down. I just simply drag down in the screen. I've got my notification panel. I can expand that. And then when I swipe up, I open up my app drawer. That just seems a bit more intuitive to me. Again, a lot of this, thankfully, is personal preference. That's why you gotta love Android, right? I guess iOS can be kind of customized like that too, but I'm just throwing out those knocks. Anyway, last one. Moving down for display, we've got Edge Screen. Edge Screen and Edge Panel. So Edge Panel, of course, is this panel right here that you can draw out from the right side of the device. Not the biggest fan because it hasn't really changed all that much over the years, ever since the Galaxy S6 Edge, I think was that first one. And there's just not a lot to do. You've got your apps edge, and of course you can add new edges such as your people edge, live messages, smart select, task edge, weather, quick tools. There's just a lot of stuff, but not a lot of stuff that I need. So one of those first things I do is that when I open up a Galaxy phone, I disable edge panels. You can or don't have to if you don't want to, that's totally fine. I keep edge lighting on. I don't know why. I never really see it work, probably because I have the phone face up, and I think it's only if you have it face down on the table you can kind of see a light glow around it. I don't know, either way. So just one of those things that I disable right out of the box. So the next one is a big one if you're coming from a Pixel phone or a non-Samsung phone. If you've been using a non-Samsung phone for a while, you'll know that Google Autofill is incredibly valuable in terms of logging into applications and websites, especially when you're setting up a new phone. However, if you're coming from a Galaxy phone, you may have already been using Samsung Pass, so don't know how too valuable it's going to be. Either way, let's talk about autofill. So under general management and language and input, if we scroll down a bit, you're going to see autofill service. I've got mine set to Google. Google is, if I've been using a OnePlus phone or a Pixel phone and I'm coming to a Galaxy phone, I'm going to want to have Google because that already has all my information, while Samsung Pass will not have all my information. So you can log into that, and then actually I was going to show you here. Cancel. Hit that little gear icon, and you're going to be able to kind of customize all that autofill settings for addresses, payment methods, passwords, etc., etc. So just a nice little hint there for anyone coming from a non-Galaxy phone to a Galaxy phone, or coming from a Galaxy to a Galaxy if you want to switch to Google's autofill that works across different platforms. Just good to know that that setting is actually there, because Samsung Pass is the default out of the box, of course. So knowing where that autofill setting is very important and valuable. Next, we're going to go to lock screen and talk about notifications. Out of the box, notifications are only badge or like app icons to see which notifications are there, and I think me and Kellen struggled with this last year because this is a sort of a new implementation by Samsung in terms of lock screen and notifications. So right here on the notifications part under lock screen, you can tap on that. This lets you customize the look of notifications on the lock screen. Extremely valuable. So view style, we want detailed. Out of the box, it's icons only. That's not really helpful. So view screen or view style detailed, we don't want to hide content. I kind of up the transparency a little bit just so it looks kind of cool on the lock screen. If you have it low, and then it's going to auto reverse text color, so you won't have to worry about if it's black or white up there if it's just set to auto. So I keep mine sort of right there in the terms of transparency. Then also I want to show notifications on the always on display, so I've got show on always on display. Nice little setting here. I like that you're able to customize that, so props to Samsung for that. Much appreciated. Just like last year and years prior and all these Galaxy phones, we have to talk about advanced features. Lots of advanced features on this phone, but the big one here is that they removed the power button from the right side. Now they just have side key. Side key is essentially your power button, except now they also have a dedicated power settings right here in the pull down menu. But for side key, I've got mine set to quick launch camera when I double press. You can also disable double press if you want. You can also open any app you want. And then when you press and hold, they want you to wake Bixby, but I refuse. I just press and hold for the power off menu. That way I don't have to worry about that being a dedicated Bixby button or anything. Essentially, this phone does not have a Bixby button unless you want it to. Beautiful. Not sure how I feel yet about the power button. I'm right-handed, so I'm not quite comfortable yet with the power button being on the left side, but considering how tall the phone is and where Samsung was placing power buttons way up here, this actually isn't that bad of an implementation. So, wanted to talk about side key. Moving on, I want to talk about motions and gestures. These are all personal preference things. You can either enable or disable lift to wake, double tap to wake. So when the screen is off, I can just double tap it if I have smart unlock. Or of course, you can just have your fingerprint unlock it that way. Smart stay, the phone is always going to be watching your eyes to see if you're still looking at the display. I kind of keep that off. I'm sort of paranoid. Just kidding. Smart alert on, easy mute on, one-handed mode. It's there if you need it. If you're kind of like, say, walking the dogs and you can't reach all the way over there, it could be dangerous. I would just, suggest one-handed mode. There's also little shortcuts you can do to enable one-handed mode real quickly. Palm swipe to capture screenshots, all that. Swipe to call or send messages. Just leave that on. But yeah, a lot of different settings, of course, and advanced features. None that I really need to talk about in terms of first 10 things to do. We could dive in that and tips and tricks and talk about S Pen, all that stuff. That'll be a separate video. These are just the first 10 things you want to do out of the box. Next, we want to talk about sound customization. Under sounds and vibration, of course, we need to find system sounds and vibration. So touch sound is kind of an annoying Samsung touch sound. I have Do Not Disturb on, so you won't be able to hear it, but it's kind of an annoying click. So I just disable touch sounds, I disable screen lock sound, disable charging sound. I leave that dialing keypad tone, that boop, beep, boop, boop, because I like doing the funky town songs sometimes. Keyboard sound, turn that off. That's only for the Samsung keyboard. I'll talk about that here in a minute. Keyboard vibration, touch vibration. And then also underneath sounds and vibration, you can talk about vibration intensity. So for the touch interaction out of the box, I think it's down on the second. I guess 1, 2. It's down on 2. I take it up to 3, and then 4 and 5. I like 3. Just feels right to me. But of course, that's customizable. And then, of course, the vibration intensity for calls and notifications, that can all be tweaked as well. So, nice little things to do. I was talking about Do Not Disturb. Underneath the, I know where this is, under notifications, is where you're going to find the Do Not Disturb. And again, like those things with night mode, like blue light filter, I always turn on as scheduled. Mine comes on at 10:30, doesn't turn off until 7:50 the next day. I have it block all notifications. It's just nice. It helps you kind of wind down. Of course, you can allow exceptions where emergency calls coming in or important text coming in will still get through. But, you know, if I'm just getting junk emails at 10 at night, not that important, I just Do Not Disturb. Absolutely love it. Moving on, we're going to talk about the home screen. So, the question is, Bixby Home or no Bixby Home? For me, personally, I'm a no Bixby Home guy, but once you get it set up, you can have it pull in Twitter trends and Flipboard news, Samsung Pay stuff, etc., etc. Just not for me. If you want to disable it, pinch on the home screen, swipe over, disable right there, and then we are done with Bixby Home. It won't go back over. So that's basically Bixby Home. If you want real quickly, I can tell you, you can go into settings here. You can Bixby Home content providers. You can kind of switch up things, pull in some new feeds, I think from Uber and Lyft or something. You can, of course, add a Bixby Home icon. Not really a fan. You can talk about Galaxy themes in there. There's just a lot of options, I suppose. If you're more invested in Bixby and Samsung's ecosystem, you know, definitely give it a try. Moving on here, we're going to talk about pull-down customization. So the notification bar is still alive and well in Android, but I want to talk about customizing all these things. Out of the box, there was like a gazillion. So underneath button order, you're going to see all these different system settings. All of these things you see up here are ones that I've already taken down. So there was like 20 pages of system icon or system toggles going on. I whittled it down to 1 page. There are a couple that I think could still be useful, like maybe having quick toggles for night mode and always on display, or the navigation bar. But really, I just don't want to fumble through a bunch of things, especially if I can access all that from the settings menu already. So you can just click and drag. You click, drag up, reorder. If I want airplane mode down here, not a problem. You can just do all of that, then click done. It's going to save all that, and you're going to have all of your customization and your order saved right there for the system toggles. And since system toggles and the brightness slider is such a big deal with Android in terms of navigation, it's just good to have that option there. The next one here is, so you'll notice that when you pull the device out of the box, you're not going to see the brightness slider right there. Actually, you have to customize that, hit that little flag, and then show control on top. So that's how it is out of the box. You have to do another one, and then the brightness is all the way down here at the bottom. So hit that little flag, show control on top. That way, as soon as you pull down your notification drawer, there's your brightness setting. You can just have that there and ready to go. Also, these median devices, this can be hidden. If you go, oh boy, I remember how to do this. Oh god, oh god, oh god. I remember how to do this. Where is it? Not details. Oh no, I'm spacing on how to do it. Either way, so there is a setting for the media and devices. There should just be a setting for it, but again, man, this is why sometimes, oh, thank goodness. So if you pull all the way down, sorry about that, kind of forget like where everything is sometimes. If you pull down that second time, you're going to see the 3 buttons right next to that settings gear icon. Hit the 3 buttons, hide media and devices. The media and devices is cool, I guess, if you always have something sort of connected, or if you want to be able to control other devices via the phone, like smart home devices, things like that, from your pull down. I don't have any smart things connected, so I just hide that, and you know, it just kind of cleans up that entire area up there quite a bit, so I'm a fan of that. Next thing, set up Samsung Pay. Samsung Pay is awesome. I can finally use it with my own bank, so I've been using it. I absolutely love it. Set up Samsung Pay. If it works with your bank, at least, you know, it uses NFC and MST, so you can use it universally anywhere, or essentially anywhere. I don't want to be redundant. And yeah, I would suggest Samsung Pay over Google Pay, at least when you're using a Galaxy phone. On other phones, you just don't have an option. So, next thing I want to talk about, themes. If you long press, you can go into themes here. You can download paid themes, free themes. They have, I don't know, material dark themes, just a whole bunch of different themes. Of course, you can customize your icons. That's for once you get everything set up, you really want to start customizing the look of the device. Definitely recommend. Next thing, I want to talk about downloading Gboard. Gboard, I find to be a bit more user-friendly over Samsung's keyboard, so I always recommend downloading Gboard from Google Play, Google's keyboard. And then lastly, for the Galaxy Note 10 Plus, micro SD expandable storage here in the top right. Don't have that on the smaller Galaxy Note 10. We're not still sure why Samsung decided to ditch that, but it's not there, so yeah, there you go. That's like 12 plus things to do when you first boot up your Galaxy Note 10. Whole lot of stuff. You might have to rewatch the video a few times. No problems if you do. I hope this was useful. If you guys have any questions or comments about the Galaxy Note 10, feel free to leave them down in the description below, and I will try to field them. And be on the lookout for tons more Galaxy Note 10 and Note 10 Plus coverage coming up. We are Droid Life. Peace.
Hey there, Saki here from Saki Tech, and in today's video I'm going to share 50 plus tips, tricks, and fantastic tactics for the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus. Now this is a fantastic smartphone, and these in-depth tips will allow you to maximize your ownership of your new and shiny smartphone. So let's dive in and discover. If you're wondering what case I'm using for my Samsung Galaxy Note 10, see the links down below. This is an official Samsung case. It's highly protective, stylish, and fantastic. Links are down below. Alright, so the very first thing I want you guys to do is to give your phone a proper name. So what you want to do is you want to go into the settings right over here, and then go all the way down, tap on About Phone, and then from here, this is the current name of your phone. When you try to pair your phone with other devices, this is the name that's going to show up. So let's make it a little bit more personalizable. So click on Edit and give it a brand new name. So in my case, I'll give it Saki 10 Plus. So I know that this is the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus for myself. Very useful when pairing your phone with other devices, all right? So the next thing I want you guys to do has to do with your battery. So as you can see on the top, you have a battery bar, but you do not have a battery meter. You cannot see exactly what level your battery is just by glancing on the top. Now, if you pull this down, you'll see that. But what I want you to do is pull this down and then tap on this button, the three dots over there, and then tap on status bar. And from here, you're able to show the battery percentage meter right on the actual status bar without having to pull down the notifications panel. So that's very convenient. Now, one thing that is brand new on the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus is the floating button on the lock screen. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is assuming that you have the fingerprints enabled. So I'm going to go to the lock screen real quick, and then I'm going to double tap on the screen to wake it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock the screen, but I'm not going to let go of my finger. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to unlock, but keep holding. When you do that, you get access to this floating button from where you can access 2 apps of your choosing, such as a calculator app or the Chrome browser. Let me show you that to you one more time. Lock the screen, all right? Double tap on the screen, press and hold, and then you get these 2 apps. Now, to customize this, you go to Settings, you go to the lock screen, then you scroll down and you go into the app shortcuts, and you want to make sure that this normally is what you're going to see by default, the button corners. but you want to enable the floating button, and then from there you can also change the two apps I just showed you guys. So calculator can turn into, for example, the clock, and this I'm going to do just to show you guys Galaxy Store. So now when I lock the screen, okay, and if I double tap on the screen, okay, and if I go inside and keep it pressed down, I have access to the clock over here or the Galaxy Store, okay. Just make sure you keep your finger on the actual screen and you can launch them from here immediately. One thing I do like to do is if I go to the settings over here and if I go into biometrics and security and go into my fingerprints, let me just dump in my password here. As you can see, I have 3 fingers registered. I got fingerprint 1, 2, 3. You want to make sure you rename these so it makes more sense. So if I want to rename the fingerprint 1, first what I want to do is I want to check edit fingerprint. So I'm going to do that, press. So that's fingerprint 1, okay? So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to erase that name and say left index. Okay, so now I know exactly what that one is. Now fingerprint 2, I want to check edit fingerprints. You tap on this one. Now this one is fingerprint 2. So I'm going to go over here, rename this to left thumb. Alrighty, so that's a great option to have as well in regards to your fingerprints. Couple other things you can do with the fingerprints. If you go back over here, you go to biometric preferences, and then you can actually enable the screen transition effect. Now if I disable this and if I go to the home, the lock screen real quick, boom boom, I will not see a transition effect. Okay, it goes right in and that feels faster. If you have this one, you are going to see a slight effect as I log into my smartphone. So you may have seen that or not on the camera, but I saw a slight transition effect. So that's for the fingerprints right there. Let's move on to the next tactic. And of course, one new thing with the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus. Now, when you pull this down once, you'll get 2 buttons here. You get the power button and the settings button. When you pull it down one more time, you get 4 buttons, you know, the search button, power, settings, and of course the 3 dots button that I'm going to talk about in a second as well. But what I do want to focus here is a quick way to turn off your phone is simply pull this down and tap on this power button, which actually activates the power menu from where you can power off, restart, activate the emergency mode, or go into the side key settings. Now I'm going to be talking about the side key in a second. That's the side key right here. Remember, the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus does not have a power button on this side. It's only going to have the side key that is actually customizable and doubles up as the Bixby/power button. We will talk about that in a second. What I do want to talk about next is actually setting up your phone's home screen so it works for you. Now, the one thing that I don't like with this phone when you first get it, let me just disable the settings so you can see what I'm talking about. So basically, if you swipe up, you get the apps. If you swipe down, you get the apps. What you can do is you can customize these interactions to access other things. So by default, this is the way the phone is set up. What you want to do is you want to pinch the screen, go into home screen settings, and you want to enable swipe down for notification panel. So when you enable this, and when you go back home, you can pull the notifications panel down by swiping on the screen towards the bottom, okay? And then when you do swipe up, you can go into your app drawer. Now, some people like to have the app drawer button at the bottom over here, at the bottom row. If you want that button, again, you want to pinch the screen, go to home screen settings, and simply enable the apps button. So if you enable this apps button, go back home, now you've got an apps button right over here that takes you into the actual app drawer instead of swiping up. Now, I think that is redundant, and I do like to have an extra app sitting right over here. So what I like to do is disable the apps button. So go to the settings, disable the apps button, go back home, and then now you have an extra space here for another app. Let me just, for now, grab this guy and dump it right here. So you can have 5 applications here. Now, just in case you're only able to add 4 apps at the bottom row, I do want to let you know you can change the grid of the phone. So if you pinch the screen, you go to home screen settings. On the top, you've got the home screen grid. So when you tap this one, you can have 4x5, you can have 4x6, you can have 5x5, which is what I prefer, and you can also have 5x6, okay? So the higher the combination, the more apps you can have on your screen. Now this is a very large screen, so 5x6 is not bad, but I like to go with 5x5, okay? So that's what it's gonna look like. Gonna have 5 apps in each row, and of course 5 apps in each column, all right? Now the other thing I want to talk about has to do with your lock screen. So basically, let me lock the phone real quick. So I'm going to lock the phone. When you single tap, it gives you your always on display. When you double tap, it wakes up the actual screen. And on the screen, there's a lot of things you can actually customize. Now the first thing I do want to talk about is the face widgets, all right? So go to the settings real quick, and then go into the lock screen. And then from here, go into the face widgets right over here. You tap on this one. And then from here, just enable all these, just in case you can see what I'm talking about. So these are the face widgets. They can also be reordered, but for now, let me show you what they are. So let me lock the screen, double tap on the screen. That's the lock screen, and now you have access to this face widget. So you can actually control your music if there's a music playing in the background, and you can swipe over to see your calendar entries. Then you want to swipe over one more time. You're going to see all your alarms in the next 7 days. If you swipe over one more time, you can see the weather and the location, all right? So you can swipe through these face widgets as you please. So that's the face widgets you can enable on your screen. So like I said, you can enable or disable these as you please, okay? Now if you tap on reorder, you can change the actual order. So you can see today's schedule first when you swipe over, music next, alarm next, weather next, Bixby routines next. It's gonna be up to you. All right, so let's move on to the next tactic. All right, so let's go into the settings real quick. I'm gonna talk about the navigation bar that's at the bottom over here. So what you wanna do is you wanna go into your display, and then what you wanna do is you want to go into the navigation bar that is right over here. You tap on this, and these are navigation bar customization tactics. So first and foremost, when you first buy the phone, this is the button order that you have. The back key, home key, recents key, that's the recents key, all right? You can swap the back and the recents key by tapping this button. Now the back key is right here, as you can see, which in my opinion is more useful, and the recents key comes right over here. So that's great. Now the other thing you can do is you can go for full screen gestures. When you go for full screen gestures, the keys, the physical keys here actually disappear. So when you go over here, what you want to do is you can use this as the back key, okay? This swipe up to go back, swipe up in the middle to go home, swipe up on the right to bring up the recents menu. So you have that option. If you like more immersion, you can do this as well. Now, if I go to navigation bar, and if I tap on this one here, the gesture hints, you see these 3 lines over here? You may or may not like them. You can just disable them, and you can just memorize what's happening over here, okay? So I can do the same thing without the actual gesture hints. Now, if you are using the S Pen to make drawings on your phone and you're doing precise drawings on the edges of your phone, you want to enable this as well. So the S Pen doesn't accidentally just make you go home or make you go into the recents while you're actually drawing. Now, if you're going to be using your S Pen to navigate your smartphone, then I would keep this disabled. Now, I like it this way right here with the buttons, so I'm going to keep it just like that. With this option, you don't have to worry about the S Pen, but with the full screen gestures, you do have to worry about the S Pen accidentally bringing you out of the application in which you're making a drawing, all right? So just be careful with that. All right, so let's move on to the next tactic. Now, real quick, I'm going to show you one more thing. Here we have a night mode, and I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the night mode. This enables you to go into the night mode. It reduces eye strain, saves some battery. But what you can also do with the night mode is you can go inside and you can schedule it as needed. So you can tap on this, and then you can choose sunset to sunrise, which is going to do everything for you automatically. So the night mode will be enabled on sunset and disabled on sunrise. Or you can create a custom schedule for this night mode to actually start. Now remember, when you do night mode, most of the system apps turn black and white. So you get black and white right here. You get black and white on the Google bar. If I go into my message, it's going to be black and white as well. So we can go right back out. Even if I go to the calculator right over here, it's going to be black and white, okay? And of course, you can also disable or enable the night mode from the notifications panel here, which also turns black and white. So let's look for the night mode option. It's right here. boom, it's gone. Now, by the way, in the notifications panel, you can press and hold on any one of these settings to go into the details of that particular setting. So I can press and hold, and boom, it takes me into the details of that night mode. So let me just disable that for now. I will fix it later. But again, like I said, notifications panel, if you press and hold on any one of these options, boom, takes you directly into the actual detailed settings for that quick toggle that's on the top. If you tap on text, it gives you a quick expansion, okay? So if I press and hold on the actual button, full settings, if I tap on the text, you get a quick expansion with for quick modifications. For example, if I tap on flashlight here, I'm able to turn that on and change the brightness intensity if I so desire. So just keep that in mind as well. Just little things that makes these phones amazing. Now, one of my favorite settings on these smartphones is the one-handed mode. The phone is large, okay? It's a 6.8-inch display. It's gonna be very hard to use with one hand. So what you wanna do is you wanna go to the settings, all right? You want to go into the advanced features, and then you want to look for motions and gestures. You tap on that, and here what we have is we have the one-handed mode. Just enable this first and then go inside and choose the button option. Now let me enable the button option real quick. So when you have the gestures enabled, the button option is grayed out. So let me just show you how to fix that if you are in this scenario as well. Go to display, go into the navigation bar, and go back to the button, navigation button setting, okay? Now let's go back to advanced settings right over here, go into motions and gestures, and go into one-handed mode. Now I'm going to choose the button option. Now when you triple tap the home button, you are able to enable the one-handed mode. You can left justify this, as you can see, or right justify this. And by doing so, you're able to use the entire phone with only your thumb. That's absolutely fantastic if you are in a need to use the phone with one hand. Again, I can go home, I can launch my text message, I can go inside the message right over here, I can tap and I can use all the keyboard to go back home, bring on the panel, and that's fantastic. When you're done with all this, you tap on the black area, boom, goes right back to maximum mode. Beautiful options. Now the next thing has to do with video and audio. Now when you're watching video and listening to audio using the stereo speakers, you want to be able to get the best possible sound quality. So there's two settings you have to tweak immediately. First, go to settings, go to advanced features, go all the way down and make sure video enhancer is enabled. So when I go in here, video enhancer kicks in when you launch certain applications. Most applications that you download from the Play Store, such as Hulu, Netflix, Prime Video, is going to be available. Now when you enable this, your picture simply becomes brighter with more vivid colors. I mean your videos. So they're simply gonna look much better. And of course, if you don't want it, you can simply disable it. You can see the difference. Just launch a YouTube video, enable this, and then disable this, watch both of them, and see which one you like. So that's the video enhancer for maximum satisfaction in video watching. Now when you go back, you want to go into the sounds and vibration. Now we're gonna fix our sound. Go all the way down, go to advanced sound settings, and of course the Note 10 Plus comes with Dolby Atmos. Tap on sound quality and effects, go into Dolby Atmos and make sure Dolby Atmos is enabled, and you can put this to be auto, so it auto picks between movies, music, and voice. Now I was watching a movie earlier, so I put it on movie. It basically is going to give you enhanced audio playback with Dolby Atmos surround sound. And of course, you want to make sure you enable the same thing for Dolby Atmos for gaming. So when you're actually gaming, you get beautiful, realistic sound. And real quick, people who do care about equalizers, you can tap on this one, pick the option that you want, or go to custom and make a modification to your equalizer as you please. All right? Again, only for people that care about equalizers. Let's move on to the next tactic. Now, I did mention the side key in the beginning of the video, so we do have a side key here. If you press the side key, which is right here, it turns off the phone. If you press it again, it goes to the lock screen, okay? And then I log in right over here. Now, you can customize the side key. Remember, if you tap on this button here, you have the option to go into side key settings from here, or you can go to the settings, go into advanced features, and then go into the side key from this to reveal the same menu. Now with a double press, you can quick launch the camera, or you can open Bixby, or you can open any app that you want. So for example, if I choose calculator, now when I double tap this guy, double tap, it's going to launch my calculator application. Okay, so remember, you do have the option to customize this key, and with the press and hold, you can either wake up Bixby or you can activate power off menu. So when you want to actually turn off your phone, you want to press and hold this guy. It brings up the power off menu. Oh, press and hold, and from here you can do whatever you please. All right, so that's great as well. Now notice when you press and hold this one, the power off menu is all white. When you go over here and tap on this power button, it's going to be more transparent black. All right, so just a little different that I thought was interesting. Now there's a couple more things you can do with that power key, by the way, so let me show you what that is. So when you go into your phone application, when you tap on this three dots button here, you want to go to the settings, and then from here you want to go into answering and ending calls. Now this is a smartphone, so many times we use it for calling people and taking calls from people. So tap on this one, and basically you can actually use the side key to end calls. So if somebody calls you and you're done with talking to them, you can press this button to end the actual call. Additionally, you can use the volume up to answer an incoming call. So if somebody calls you right now, instead of swiping the green button, you can press the volume up to take the phone call, to accept the phone call. So make sure, if you like these options, these hardware buttons to take and end a phone call, enable these as well. All right, so let's move on to the next tactic. Now I do want to talk about the edge panels really quickly. So if I go over here, okay, these are the edge panels. What I want you guys to do is understand that this is fully customizable. By the way, if you tap this button here, you get quick access to all your edge panels. Now when you go into the settings, okay, from here you can add or remove even more edge panels, as you can see. Okay, so I can add so many more. When I go home and pull this, now I got so many more edge panels that I can swipe through. Okay, you can tap on settings over here and you have access to all these. You can customize them. You can even turn off the edge screen if you don't want it. It's gone. Okay, but if you enable it, it's going to sit right over here. Of course, you can even modify where this edge panel sits. So you can tap on this button here. You can say edge panel handle, and you can take this panel and you can put it on the other side by tapping the right button. Now it's right over here. So now it's going to be accessible from this side. You can change the color of the actual handle. So when I go back home, now my edge panel handle is right over here. Okay, so many ways to customize this. But the best thing is you can tap on this button, go into Galaxy Store, and then download additional edge panels. Once you download them, they'll show up right over here in the settings right here. Okay, now soft key edge is something you're not going to have. You may have seen me using it. If you want the soft key edge panel, you go to the store, you just search for it, and you download it. All right, once you grab it, you're going to have this beautiful option right over here that allows you to take a screenshot right over here, or even if you want, you can lock the screen using software keys, okay, which is what I prefer to have. So those are the edge panels, and of course we also have edge lighting. Now we don't have a notification LED light on the smartphone, so you want to go to the settings again, and you want to go into display, and from here you want to go into edge screen. And this is what we were earlier. We were in this menu right over here. Okay, you can access that menu from here as well. But you want to go to edge lighting, and you want to make sure that you enable edge lighting when you get a notification like a text message or a phone call. The edges of the phone actually glow, and those glows, as you can see, are fully customizable. So I can have all these. Let me just change the color real quick. Let's do red, so you can, or green. Let's do the width. I'm going to make this very thick so you can see it easier. So you can do all these things, all right? You can also change the transparency to high or low. So effects are these. So I have the bubble effect, the multicolor effect, so when somebody calls me or sends me a text message, or the glow effect, all right? Or you can do the glitter effect. Again, these are the notifications we have on this phone because we don't have the LED light on the top. So make sure you customize these as you please. I prefer to have the basic option right over here. Click done. Remember, that's the edge lighting style. You can also go in here and customize what apps you want to actually use the edge lighting for. So I can enable WhatsApp for it, I can enable the calendar for it. So for all these apps that I've enabled, the edge lighting is going to go into effect, or I can enable all of them, all right? But I don't like that. I like to customize my stuff, so I'm going to keep it like that for now. All right, let's move on to the next tactic. Now I do want to talk about the always on display really quickly. So if I go into my lock screen, when I lock the phone, turn it off, you'll see that if I tap on the screen, you'll see an always on display that gives you quick information and some of your notifications. So this thing is fully customizable as well. So what you want to do is you want to go to the settings, and then you want to go into the lock screen. And from here, what you want to do is you want to go into the clock style. Now, first and foremost, here's the always on display. You can disable or enable that as you please. When you enable the always on display, you tap on this, and what you can do is you can enable the tap to show option, which is what I have, or you can have the show always option. If I have this one, and if I lock the screen, it's just going to appear automatically, as you can see, and it's going to remain there, but it is going to eat some battery life. Not too much, but it's going to eat some battery life. So I like to use it as tap to show. So it is not there, but if I want to see it, I can tap the screen, boom, shows right up. So that's the always on display. But when you want to change it, you want to go to the clock style, and from here you want to tap on always on display, and then you quickly get access to all these various always on displays that you can show off in your lock screen. So I just picked a new one. So now when I tap to show, boom, I'll see the new styling that I chose. So let's go back here real quick. Clock style, always on display, and then go to the color. You can also change the colors for everything. Okay, so I can pick a different color, as you can see. And then again, if I go to the lock screen, tap to show, it's going to show up right there. Okay, so that's all great stuff. Again, you can also tap on clock style and also change the lock screen's clock style as well. So from here, I can pick something like this and also change the color to red. Click done. Now when I go to the lock screen, I will be able to see a beautiful clock right over here the way I want it. Remember also we have the face widgets. All right, so that's all fantastic. Now one more thing I'd like to add to my lock screen is if I go to the settings over here and go into lock screen, I like to add a quick contact information, but I use it as a signature. So what I do is I type in Saki Tech, I click done. When I go to the lock screen now, you'll see that I'll be able to put a little Saki Tech at the bottom of date, which is great because you can put a quote if you want, or anything that motivates you or inspires you. You can put a little quote out there. And also realize that I made a typo, so it's going to be Saki Tech. All right. And one final thing with the lock screen over here is you can actually change the app shortcuts that you see on the lock screen on the corner. So if I go here again, lock screen, you have access to the phone here that you can launch like this, okay? Or the camera that you can launch like this. So if you want, you can modify these two buttons. So again, if you're in the app shortcuts under lock screen, what you want to do is you want to tap on left shortcut, change it to any other app. As you can see, calculator, right shortcut, you can change it to another app like Chrome, and then you have calculator and Chrome on the lock screen. If you're wondering what case I'm using for my Samsung Galaxy Note 10, see the links down below. This is an official Samsung case. It's highly protective, stylish, and fantastic. Links are down below. Alright, so if you found this video useful, make sure to subscribe to Saki Tech by clicking that button, and also click that bell icon on the side to make sure you get notified every time I upload a new video. And if you do use Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, you can follow me at Saki Tech Online to get the latest updates as well. All right, have a fantastic day.
So here it is, guys, the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. Obviously, this is the AT&T version, and today I'm going to show you guys the absolute fastest and easiest way to set this device up. Now, I'm going to be using a feature called Samsung Smart Switch to do this, and I'm going to be doing this during the initial setup of the device. Now, if you've already gone through the initial setup process, but you still have a bunch of data on your old device that you need to transfer to the new device, you can still use this method. And I'm going to show you guys how to get back into using Smart Switch towards the end of the video. All right, so first things first, let's get this out of the box. So this is everything you get in the box: a 25 watt USB-C style charger. You get a couple extra S Pen tips and an S Pen tip removal tool. You get a SIM card ejector tool, a USB-C to regular USB adapter. You get a USB-C to USB-C cable, USB-C earbuds with little extra tips for those earbuds as well. But you could put most of this stuff back in the box and just keep out these 3 accessories. We're gonna go ahead and start with the SIM ejector tool. There is a little pinhole at the top of the device. Just push the SIM ejector tool into that hole. That ejects the tray, and you can put your SIM card in that tray. Now, if you have the regular Note 10 and not the Note 10 Plus, you're just gonna see this bottom tray here. The top tray won't be there because you don't get micro SD card expansion on the regular Note 10. Now grab your old device, make sure it's off, then take the SIM tray out of that one, and take the SIM from your old device and put it into the new device. If you have a micro SD card, you can go ahead and install that in this upper slot right here. I'm not gonna install one right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and put the SIM card tray back in. While we're here, let's go ahead and take off this protective film. And now we can go ahead and start up the device. All right, so when you first start up, you're gonna get this screen here. There's a little speaker icon here. If you tap that, Bixby's gonna start speaking to you when you tap Let's Go. Let me show you that.
Let's look at the terms and conditions. Once you read and agree to these, we can really get going.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off. If you want some assistance while you're doing this, you can go ahead and keep that on, and Bixby's gonna kind of talk you through the process. But I'm just gonna show you guys kind of how this all works. So first thing here is end user license agreement. You do need to check that in order to use the device. Same with privacy policy. You don't need to check the sending of diagnostic data. This is basically if there's something wrong with the device or it like crashes or apps crash or something like that, Samsung's going to get a notification that basically gives them a report about what happened. Now there's no personal information that's shared with that. It's not like it gives you like your address and that kind of information. It's just crash reports and things of that nature. Personally, I don't really turn that on, but if you feel like turning it on, go ahead. Now, if you turned on diagnostic data, you also get the option to turn on information linking, and this does link personal information along with that crash data. I'm going to keep both those unchecked and just click next. All right, now you got to get onto a Wi-Fi network. Once you're connected, click next. The phone's now going to check for updates and install any day one updates. After that, it's going to ask you to sign into your Google account. Once you're logged in, it's going to ask you to agree to Google's terms of service, and you kind of have to if you want to use any apps or download apps or really do anything on the phone. You do have to agree to this, so go ahead and just click agree. Now it's going to ask if you want to use a Google backup to restore all of your data. Don't do this. This never really works that well for me. It's kind of hit or miss. There's a much better method, so go ahead and click don't restore, and I'm going to show you guys the best way to do this. Next, it's going to ask you to set up some sort of a lock for your phone. So you could use face recognition, fingerprints, pattern, PIN, password, or not set up a lock at all. Just to speed things up, I'm just going to click Not Now. Next, you're going to get some information about how the Google Assistant works. Next, you've got a few options to select for Google services. The first is backup to Google Drive. Now, this basically backs up a lot of your data, apps, app data, call history, messages, Wi-Fi passwords, etc., etc. Now, I do always keep this checked because this is really useful if you lost your old device or if you sold your old device before transferring all the data to the new device. Further down, you've got use location and allow scanning. Use location basically says that apps can use your GPS location to give you information. This is required if you're going to use like Google Maps, for example. In order to use navigation, it does need to use your GPS to know where you are. Allow scanning figures out your location based on Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi networks and things like that that are nearby, it can help pinpoint your location faster. You don't have to turn on allow scanning. It may just take a little bit longer to find your location when you're using Google Maps. Further down, you get another send usage and diagnostic data option. The first one was sending the data to Samsung because this is a Samsung specific device. This one is for Google, so Google related apps and services. If any of that stuff crashes, crash reports get sent to Google so it can help try to solve the problem. So it's up to you whether or not you want to turn that off. Install updates and apps is something that you have to agree to. This basically allows Google to install applications and update those applications on your phone from the Google Play Store. Then just tap accept when you're done. Next, you may get some carrier-specific options. This is just some AT&T stuff for Wi-Fi calling and visual voicemail. I'm going to go ahead and just skip that for now. This is a little ridiculous. AT&T is asking me if I want to install this bloatware on my phone. No, I don't, so I'm going to go ahead and just click skip. AT&T has their own transfer feature, but it's not as good as what I'm going to show you, so let's go ahead and just skip this too. No, I don't want a reminder to use AT&T's method. And again, another AT&T feature that I can set up, I'm just gonna go ahead and skip that. Now, this is the method you wanna use to transfer all the data from your old device to the new device. It says, have Samsung bring your data from a previous device. Now, if you're coming from an older Samsung device, you can connect wirelessly. Otherwise, you're gonna have to connect with a cable. So if you have an iPhone or any other Android device or even a BlackBerry, you can just plug in with a cable and transfer all the data that way. Now, I personally prefer the cable method regardless of whether or not I'm coming from a Samsung device because it's a more secure connection, like physically that it's less likely that the connection is going to break, and the transfer is just gonna happen a lot faster over a USB connection. So let's go ahead and click cable and next. So right now it's updating Smart Switch. So now it's prompting me to plug in my old device into the Note 10 Plus. Now there's a few different ways to do this. I'm transferring from a Galaxy S10 Plus, so it has USB-C on the bottom. So I can just use this USB-C to USB-C cable that came with my Note 10 to make this transfer. Now, if you're coming from something like an iPhone, chances are you don't have a Lightning to USB-C connector laying around, and that's what this adapter is for. So this is regular USB on the bottom there. So you would plug this into the bottom of your Note 10, and then you would plug a Lightning cable from this adapter into your iPhone. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch sides here and get this cable plugged in. Once it's plugged in, you'll be asked on the old device to allow access to your data. Just click allow. And the Note 10 is then going to scan your old device and find all of the data that can possibly pull over from it. Now, something else I want to point out is that since this is a Samsung device, I already had Smart Switch installed, but if you're transferring from any other Android device or an iPhone, you'd have to install the Smart Switch application from either the Google Play Store if it's another Android device, or the Apple Store if you're transferring from an iPhone. Then once that app is installed, you'll be able to make the transfer just like this. So now it's going to give me a bunch of options for different things I can transfer. As you can see, you could transfer all of your calls and contacts. You can transfer all of your messages, and if I tap the word messages, you have the option to transfer all of your messages, the last 2 years, 12 months, 6 months, 3 months, or just the last 30 days. If you don't want to transfer any messages, you can just uncheck that box. You can see here I also have 11.32 gigs worth of apps to transfer. If I tap apps, I can see all of my old applications from the other device. And if I see an app that I'm like, hey, I haven't used that in a long time, I can just uncheck that and that particular app won't transfer. And then there's also a toggle up here to transfer all of them or none of them. And something else that I want to point out really quick is that if you're coming from an iPhone, obviously there may be some applications that aren't available on the Google Play Store. Those apps obviously can't transfer, but all of the apps that are also available on the Google Play Store will transfer. Settings, this is extremely important. So if I tap this, you can see that it transfers all of my Wi-Fi networks. So if you went to a friend's house and they gave you their Wi-Fi password, like they punched it in for you, then you won't have to ask them for the password again the next time you go to their house because it's just gonna transfer directly over to your new device. Home screen's another great one. This transfers the layout of your home screens from the old device to the new device. Now, this is supposed to work with moving from any device, iPhone, Android, Samsung to Samsung, but I've noticed that it definitely works better going Samsung to Samsung. Like coming from my S10 Plus to the Note 10 Plus, everything's going to transfer exactly one-to-one from what it was to the old device to the new device. And what I mean by that is on my home screens, the apps are going to be in all of the same places, the widgets are going to be in the same places, my lock screen and home screen wallpapers are going to be exactly the same as it was on the old device, and even my Bixby home settings and Samsung DeX settings are going to transfer. Images obviously transfers all of your images. If you tap this, you can see all of the images you have from the old device and select which ones you want to transfer. I'm not going to transfer any images now. And videos is the same deal. You can transfer videos from the old device. As you can see, I have 43 gigs worth of videos on the old device. I'm definitely not going to transfer that now because that would take a super long time. Same goes for audio. If you have any music saved to your device, you can transfer that as well. And documents as well. I am going to keep that on. Transferring any documents you had in the old device, that will all transfer to this new device. If you guys have been paying attention to the top, you may have noticed that as I check and uncheck these little boxes, this time has been changing a lot. So if I tap videos again, you'll see that the time goes up to 1 hour and 27 minutes. If I uncheck that, it goes down to about 47 minutes because I just dropped 43 gigs worth of data that I was transferring. Now the 47 minutes is total transfer time. So what's going to happen is the old device is going to package all of the information and then send all the information in one short burst. And then once that information is sent over, you can then unplug the old device and all of the apps will start installing on the new device. So that 47 minutes is taking into account the installation of those applications. You won't actually have to keep these devices connected for the full 47 minutes. Now that said, even though this is total time counting app installation, it's still going to take a super long time if you have to transfer something like 50 plus gigs worth of videos and images. So once you're done selecting everything you want to send over, just tap transfer. Now as that's transferring, I can go ahead and continue to set up my device. So now it's asking me to sign into my Samsung account, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Then it's going to ask if you want to use customization services. This is actually a really useful service. If you tap details, you can get a lot more information about it. And one of the best examples they gave has to do with reminders and Bixby. So if you asked Bixby to remind you to buy a bottle of water when you're almost home, allowing customization services allows your phone to know where home is, and it'll know when you're actually almost home, and it'll send you a notification to buy that bottle of water. If you don't turn customization services on, you won't be able to do things like that. Now there are a bunch of other examples in here, so if you're really curious about all the different things that it enables, you can go ahead and read through that. Now personally, I do enable this because I do use those features. So once you've decided, tap agree. Now it's going to check my Samsung Cloud for backup data, and you can see a whole bunch of other devices that I've had in the past. I'm not going to transfer any data here because I'm already using Samsung Smart Switch. I'm going to tap skip, and now it says that I'm all done, so I can tap finish now and start using my device. Now you can see here at the bottom it says don't disconnect the cable. It's still transferring all of the data. And if I pull down the notification shade and scroll down to the bottom, you can see that it's still copying my stuff. So I tap that and it shows me that I'm 24% along and I have 36 minutes left to finish the transfer. At the bottom, it shows you exactly what's transferring. So right now it's transferring all of the apps and app data. And what it's really doing is it's creating APKs, which are the install files for all the different applications on the old device, then transferring all those APKs over to the new device. The significance of this is that you don't need an internet connection to install all of those applications. So as you can see, all the data has finished transferring from the old device to the new device, but there's still 32 minutes left for all of that data to be unpacked. Now what that means is all of the messages to go into the Messenger application in the correct order, all of the apps to be installed, my home screens to be set up in the right order with the apps in the right places and the widgets in the right places, and obviously all of the apps installing. And you can see here at the bottom it says that I can now disconnect the USB cable. So I'm going to go ahead and close this here on the old device, and I'm going to go ahead and unplug that cable. So at this point, you can just put your old device to the side and start using the new device. Something else I want to point out is that as the apps are installing, you'll see them start to appear in your app drawer. So you can see a bunch of apps have already been installed, and as more apps get installed, you'll see them just start to populate in this area. Once the transfer completely finishes, you're going to get this notification, it says you are ready to go, and it shows you all of the items that were copied. If you tap this, it gives you a better summary of everything that was transferred. And if you tap that, it's going to show you which apps are still installing. So as you can see, checkboxes are the ones that have already installed, and these little twirly circles are the ones that are still installing. I should also point out that on your home screens, any app that is gray is an app that hasn't yet been installed. As you can see there, StockTwits and Redbox just finished installing. So if you're one of those people I mentioned at the beginning of the video who already set up your Note 10 but still need to transfer a bunch of data from your old device to the new device, that's no problem. All you have to do is open up your app drawer, go to the Samsung folder, and open up Smart Switch. Then just tap Allow here. Tap that you want to receive data. Tap that you want to use a cable. And plug your old device in and you can start another transfer. And if you need a refresher on how exactly the transfer works, just go to this time code in the video. So there you have it, guys, the absolute fastest way to set up your Galaxy Note 10 or Note 10 Plus. Let me know which model you guys got down in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video if you liked it, share it if you loved it, and subscribe to see my upcoming Galaxy Note 10 Plus coverage. And while you're at it, smack that notification bell so you can be the first to know when the videos drop. That's it for this tech-isode. God bless, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel of Jimmy Is Promo, and today we will be turning on, activating, and transferring all of our content to the brand new Samsung Galaxy Note 10. Now we just unboxed this phone. The plastic film is still on the front screen. We still have plastic on the back. This phone was not turned on just yet, so we will be going through the full initial setup process, as well as using Samsung Smart Switch to move from the old Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. So if you did, for instance, get this phone off Samsung.com, or you had it sent to your house, or if you go to Best Buy, you will be doing this process by yourself. But if you go to AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, or T-Mobile, they would be able to help you transfer all of your content over. So how about we do this? Let's turn on the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. And as this one does turn on, I do want to let you know that this little adapter was inside of your box. So we just unboxed everything. Everything is still sitting right here, but this is the tool that you'll use if you would like to do it the hardwire way, which means that you place this adapter in your brand new Samsung Galaxy Note. You'll take your USB Type-C or micro USB cable, whichever one you would need, and then this goes into your old device. And then this way you'd be able to start the transfer process. But one of the things I will be doing in today's video is, instead of doing it via the cable, I will be doing it cordless. So it will be done wirelessly, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that you had the option to use the Samsung Smart Switch with this adapter that was in there. The other thing you will be using is inside of your cover. Underneath here, inside of that little user guide or start menu, will be your SIM ejection tool. So if you use this little tool on the very top of the phone, that's how you can put in your SIM card and micro SD card if you have the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. So with that kind of out of the way, let's move those out of the way and let's get going and let's do the setup process. Now, that whole SIM ejection tool, I will actually be using this one here. So if you're asking why I moved it, I do have my own that I use for my videos. Now, before we go over here and click on Let's Go, if you guys are brand new here at the channel of Jimmy Is Promo and you own a Samsung Galaxy device, don't forget to hit on that subscribe button, as well as the bell for notifications so you get notified for future videos. And don't forget about that playlist tab on the very top to check out all the videos I've made so far for the Galaxy Note 10, the S10, and the rest of these Samsung Galaxy devices. So without further ado, let's go over here and hit on Let's Go. Now you will notice that there is a little speak or non-speak little volume icon on the top right hand side. You're able to mute the person speaking to you, kind of giving you direction from screen to screen, but because I'm also speaking, I don't really want to speak over her, and so we're just going to have this one on mute. So in the screen here it says bring your old data for quicker setup. You can bring your settings, contacts, apps, photos, music, and more. And so it's just going to ask you how you would like to connect. So we will be doing this one wireless. Now beforehand, about a minute ago, I showed you how you're able to use this adapter with a cable. So if you are using it through a cable or hardwire option, you are able to do it this way with the iPhones and other Android devices. You can also skip it for now, and you can also do wireless. So this is only available from Samsung Galaxy devices. So when you go from a Samsung Galaxy device to your Galaxy device, you'll have the option of wireless. But if you come from a different manufacturer, such as Apple or LG or OnePlus or anybody else, you will be using this cable option. So let's head over into wireless and hit on next. So in order to get connected, you want to put in the pin right over here. So you can see how it automatically already pretty much popped up. It's finding nearby Galaxy devices to switch from. And so because this is my phone, in order to make sure that we're connecting to the same and correct device, this is where I put in this pin here of 0186. Start sending data. And so now they will be speaking to each other. So I don't know if you guys have really used Samsung Smart Switch in the past, or if you've never done it ever, or if it's been a few years, but you can see how it's changed a little bit. So let's see here, bring the rest of your data after transfer. So done bringing your settings. To bring the rest of the data, tap the notification after you've finished. Okay, sounds good. So it looks like some of the things are already moving over. From this moment on here, because I don't have the SIM card plugged in, it's not going to be using the mobile data. But what you just saw was it connected automatically to a Wi-Fi. The reason why is because this moved over my settings. So because I accepted this pin, it automatically knew and transferred the settings over with the Wi-Fi password, making it super, super simple. All right, let's hit on next. So it just got done searching for updates, and this is where you sign into your Google account. Once you're signed in, you will hit on I agree, and now it's checking for more information. So it's also getting and signing in to your Gmail account. You might also get a notification letting you know like, hey, did you just sign in? And so usually it's this one right here where you can just hit on yes, that was me, but I'll do that here in just a minute. So you can also choose a backup to restore. So for me, I'm not looking for something to restore. I really just want to move my content over. If you do have something you would like to move over, you can do it that way. Right here, we will be doing and setting up a PIN and password and everything else. So if I hit on back, you have a bunch of different options to protect your phone: the face recognition, fingerprints, pattern, PIN, password, and more. For right now, let's just go for PIN, just so there's a little bit of security on this phone, but I will be doing a much more deeper dive on the fingerprints and facial recognition in an upcoming video. Now that you put in a code or password or PIN or anything like that, now it's just going to set up your Google Assistant. You can also have this backup in storage and really all this other stuff. So I'm just going to hit on accept for all of these. You know, I love how Google just has everything, you know, completely integrated since it is an Android device. And so you're not really going to lose anything. Now you want to sign into your Samsung account. So this one is a very super important step with a Samsung device. This way, if you lose your phone or if you need to factory data reset it or really do anything, you can track it with 15-minute increments. And you can also, let's say that you get locked out of your phone, you're able to remotely get into the phone as well. So Google has a few services like that, but the Samsung one is just a little bit more intuitive and a little bit easier to use. Also with the Samsung account, it comes with a whole bunch of different customization things. It saves and remembers your notes and keyboards and really just a whole bunch of stuff that's just a little bit more than what Google has to offer. And so anytime that you have something that is made by your manufacturer, definitely sign into those. And the Samsung account is one of those things that you really need to do. So you're just gonna have a whole bunch of different pop-ups. Let's see here. So bring the rest of the stuff. So this is where you can do either bring it all or you can do choose. So this is what Samsung Smart Switch is really doing here. So we kind of moved a little bit of settings over. I did the whole Google stuff, the Samsung account stuff, but now this is the Samsung Smart Switch turn to shine. So this is going to go from the old device over into the new phone. So first off, it's going to kind of search and find what it can bring over, and then you're able to choose it from there. Now this is kind of new for me. I haven't done Samsung Smart Switch for a little while. I've actually always started fresh with every phone, if you guys are familiar with my channel. So let's kind of look at this here. So underneath calls and contacts. So if you actually click on the icon, this is what you're able to choose what you want to move over. And then when you choose on the wording below that, you can choose what everything else kind of moves over and where it comes from. So I can bring over my call log from the old phone and also all my contacts from everything over here. So really with my contacts, I don't need it to come from there. I'm gonna hit done. With messages, I don't need to have all of my messages. That's almost 6,000 text messages. I'm just gonna bring everything from the last 30 days. That's everything that's important. It's only 55 megabytes, which is way smaller than the other one. And then right over here, you have all of your applications. So let's see, you got your clock. So it's gonna bring over all of your alarm clocks and everything you have set up, your Samsung Notes, your internet history, the kids' home, which, you know what, I'm gonna do that later. And also my AR emoji, I'm gonna redo that stuff. Reminders, I guess I don't really need the reminder. Let's see, don't need the tag board, don't need that. So I think we should be okay with a few other things. Don't need that. This is now, you're basically choosing what applications that you want to move over to your next phone. So let's see. Once you've gone through those applications that you would like to move over, then you can head over into settings. So you can bring the device settings, which is the font size, Wi-Fi networks, your quick panel layout, the notifications, accessibility, app settings, and things like that. But for what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do, some of those videos that's like, the first 10 things to do. That is actually some of the things that I do wanna do. I don't need to bring over my home screen. Let's see, the images, I actually technically don't need the images. Everything is already on the Google Photos, so everything is already backed up through Google. Same thing with video. My audio, I guess I will move over into my documents. So this is not going to take too long. Because you didn't move over every single thing, it's not going to take as long as it says. So the fiance did hers last night. It stated it would take about an hour, but it only took about 35 minutes. Here, mine says it's going to take about 35 minutes, and I bet it's going to be quite a bit less. Once you're inside of the screen, if you wanted to, you are able to get out. Sometimes people are afraid of losing, information. So you can actually do this option here that says keep screen on. So this way you can always watch it come through. You don't want it to time out. Maybe if you time out, you might accidentally hit on cancel or stop, or something's gonna happen. So this is something that's also, again, brand new with the newest Samsung Smart Switch, is the option here to keep the screen on. So what I'm gonna do now is stop the camera and then turn it right back on once this is finished, and finish out the rest of this video. Okay guys, so it looks like it is all done and complete. I had this phone over here that had a stopwatch going just to see how long it would take. I went outside, I trimmed a little bit along my back fence as this was going, and it looked like the screens were just dimming down. So even though it said about 10 or 11 minutes on the timer or the stopwatch, it probably got done after about 9 or 10 minutes. So right over here it says that you are done. Over here it looks like, let's check it out. So contacts, there was 563 items moved over. All of the contacts saved to the internal storage, even if they were originally in synced accounts. Also the call log, all the messages, so it looks like anything from last 30 days. So there's a little over 1,100 messages. My applications, the items have moved over. I had 7 pieces of MP3s, 7 songs, and then my 40 different documents. So it looks like everything has been done, moved over. There was one of them that did not get copied, which we can get from the Play Store, and it was Sound Assistant, which is a Samsung phone, or I'm sorry, a Samsung application from the Galaxy App Store. So I'll just get that one a little bit later on. No big deal. So it looks like everything is right over here on the brand new phone. I just have to move over kind of my widget. I didn't move over, my restoring type of stuff, so I didn't get my wallpaper and everything else. So from here on out, I'm going to create a video talking about the first 10 things to do, or at least the first 20 things, at least that I do when I get a brand new phone. And so let's just kind of go through here. Click on messages, and it looks like a lot of things are there for text messages. If I go into my calls, I'm sure it has all my call logs. And then let's say that we go inside of gallery, and that's right, I did not move over my photos, and that's just because everything was already stored on the Google Photos. But if you did move over anything, check out your pictures, check out your text messages, check out all of your contacts inside of here. So let's say that we go inside of recents. You can see recents, contacts, and then looks like everybody is here and we are good to go. So that is how you're able to use the brand new Samsung Smart Switch for the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. So now that we have this one that is basically all transferred, time to retire the back plastic. Now the last thing to do now is to move over the SIM card, and so that is where this one will come into play. You'd also be able to use the SIM card ejector tool that came inside the box. You're going to press inside of that little hole, push out your SIM card. So for here we have her sitting in there, and really the most important thing to do now is just look at wherever that little hole was that you first put in your little SIM piece, the little SIM ejector tool. Push it on in, and then you always would want to make a test call. So let's open this up. I'm going to put in my little credentials. But once you place in your SIM card for the first time, it will do a small fast reset, and so that's why it turned off and it's turning right back on. But once you put in that SIM card, make sure that you make a test call. So call someone that you're with, call the store, call a family member, whatever the case. So this way you know for a fact that you do have your SIM card working and there's nothing you need to do, if you need to check out a store. So there we go. We have LTE on the very top. I'm going to swipe to unlock this with the credentials. And once you unlock it, you might notice that it could go right back over into Wi-Fi. So just go on through, turn off the Wi-Fi, and just make sure it says LTE. Head inside of your phone app, call somebody, make sure it's all connected. And then now that you have everything transferred from your old phone to your new phone, even if you do go from an iPhone, use this adapter here. Every single piece of anything that is on your iPhone will be moved over into your Samsung, just in case if you are curious. So that is it. We moved everything over, good to go. Got all the text messages from the last 30 days. All my photos are on Google Photos. Everything is pulling in. Now I just got to play with the applications and the home screen settings and really everything else. But again, those are some upcoming videos. So make sure you guys hit on that like button as well as subscribe. You can subscribe right over here on the very bottom left-hand side, that little circle. Share this video with your friends and family and social media sites. And other than that, I'll see you guys later.
What's going on, friends? It's Jonathan. Welcome back to your daily dose of hotness. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Note 10. These are my top 10 things that you should do as soon as you get your device. Number 1, the first thing I always recommend when it comes to modern flagships is protection. Plus, not to mention, the backside gets super smudgy. So if you're a neat freak, a clean freak, you're gonna hate this. So just avoid it altogether, slap a skin on it, throw a case on it. So in this case, I'm waiting on my Colorware skins to arrive. You guys know how much I love Colorware skins. They'll be here soon, or they'll be listed on the website soon. Make sure to check them out, and you can save some money using my discount code, which is also found down below. Now on the front side, I got a Whitestone dome screen protector on here. The installation did get a little bit more crazier from what it already was, but I was able to manage, and I gotta say, once again, Whitestone Dome has outdone themselves. The oleophobic coating is top notch. The actual protection, top notch. Plus, it is fully compatible with the in-display fingerprint scanner. As you can see, I'll do it one more time. And boom. Number 2. The next thing I recommend is that you set up some form of lock screen security, whether you want to use the in-display fingerprint scanner, a PIN, a passcode, or you want to use facial scanning. A lot of people don't realize that it still has facial recognition. While it's not the most secure form of facial recognition, it's nothing like Face ID, you still have that option. So let me quickly show you how to set up your lock screen security. So go into your settings and then find where it says lock screen, tap on lock screen, and then go to screen lock type. Tap on that. If you don't have a PIN, it won't prompt you to do this. So if you do have a PIN, go ahead and enter it. Then pick your form of protection. So you could do swipe, which means no security at all. You just swipe up and it goes straight into your phone. You could pick a pattern. You could do a PIN, like I said, password, and then you could do your biometrics. So you have face. So to set that up, go ahead, enable it, click continue. And are you wearing glasses right now? We'll say no, continue. And you're just basically gonna hold your phone up. It's going to pick up your face. You see it said face registered. Now click next and we'll lock the phone. Now when I turn on my phone, you'll see a little LED light up around the camera and it's gonna be searching for a face. So I'll show you that real quick. So turn on the phone, you can see the LED lighting up and then it's gonna say no face found. See, no face detected. Now, let me turn back off the screen, turn it on, boom. The lock icon becomes unlocked because it found my face. This isn't the most secure form of protection or security, but it's still really convenient and really cool. If you want to go straight into your phone instead of having to swipe up when it recognizes your face, so that way there's no delay and it's a little bit faster, go back into your settings, find where it says biometrics and security, then go under face recognition, enter your PIN. Once you're in, find where it says stay on lock screen and disable that. Now go back. When I lock my phone and then turn on the screen, I go straight into my phone. It's definitely more convenient and it's a lot faster, but just remember, it's not the most secure form of lock screen protection. That's always going to be your biometrics. Number 3. So one of the new changes with the Note 10, Note 10 Plus, and Note 10 Plus 5G is that there's no dedicated Bixby button. They removed it and instead turned the power button into like a multi-function button. Now out of the box, if you press and hold the power button, instead of giving you the power down option menu, it's gonna trigger Bixby. If you don't like Bixby and this is a problem, let me show you how you can disable Bixby altogether. So what you're gonna do is go into your phone and then swipe down, go to the little power icon here. Basically, if you want to keep this Bixby functionality, this is how you're going to be powering down your phone from now on. But we don't want that. We want to kill Bixby altogether. So let's go into side key settings. And then where it says press and hold go ahead and tap on power off menu. So now instead of triggering Bixby when you press and hold, it's actually going to give you the power off menu, which is exactly what most of us are accustomed to. Now you can also do something else with the power button. So we'll go back into side key settings, and where it says double press, you have options to open Bixby, you have quick launch of the camera, or you can designate an app that opens with the double press. So you can see I have Google set up here. Now when I double press it, it pulls up my Google feed. Number 4. The next thing is the navigation bar. I, for one, don't really like how Samsung has the navigation bar set up out of the box. I like things switched around a little bit because I'm more accustomed to stock Android, but we can fix that. So let me show you how. What you're gonna do is go into your settings, tap on display, and then scroll down until you see navigation bar. Go to the very bottom where it says button order and select the last option. Now your back button is on the left, your multitask button is on the right, and this is much closer to stock Android or like 90% of the other Android phones out there. If you don't want to use buttons, you can always go with the full screen gestures. So a swipe up on the right hand side brings up your background apps. A swipe up on the left hand side is your back button, and then a swipe in the middle will bring you home. Number 5. The Galaxy Note 10 Plus and the Galaxy Note 10 Plus 5G feature Quad HD panels. They're big, they're beautiful, they're vibrant, they're some of the best displays on the market to date on a mobile phone. However, out of the box, many people don't realize they're actually not even set to Quad HD, they're only set to 1080p. So the next thing is to go in, change it to your max resolution, adjust the color, and also the font size. Let me show you how to do it. So what you're gonna wanna do is go back into your settings, tap on display, scroll down until you see screen resolution, tap on that, and where it says Full HD Plus, this is the 1080p resolution that it's set to straight out of the box. We don't want that. Tap on W Quad HD Plus, tap apply, and you're instantly gonna see your display get much sharper, and it's gonna look much better. Just trust me, go ahead and do it. It does consume a little bit more battery, but it's worth it. Number 6. By now, I'm sure you've seen my animated lock screen wallpaper. I love it, it's unique, and it adds a little pop to my phone. So that's the next thing I recommend. Make your phone your own, customize it. Go into the Galaxy theme store, download a theme, download a new wallpaper, a lock screen wallpaper, an always on display, whatever it is that you want, download it and make your phone customized to your liking. That's what makes Android versus something like iOS. To do that, what you're gonna do is go into your phone, swipe down, go into your settings, and tap on wallpapers and themes. It's gonna pull up the Galaxy theme store. You are gonna have to pay for some, but there's a lot of free options in here as well. So we're gonna tap on the themes tab down here, and we're gonna go to one that I recently purchased that I really like called Burnt Pie. So as you can see, many things have changed. The wallpaper has changed, the icon pack has changed, and now looks more like pixel icons. If I swipe down, the notification shade has now changed. It's all pitch black. And even if we go into the settings, it's pitch black as well, which looks much better on an AMOLED display. It's also gonna conserve some battery, so it's definitely a plus. Number 7. In my first Note 10 video, a lot of people commented and were upset that they removed the notification LED. However, on the Note 10, there's a similar feature that offers the same functionality, but in my opinion, looks a little bit better. It's called edge lighting. Let me show you how to enable it and also how to customize it. The first thing to do is go into your settings, and then you're gonna find display. Tap on display, scroll down until you see edge screen, tap on that, and you're gonna see an option for edge lighting. Right out of the box, it's already enabled, which is a good thing, but you might wanna customize it a little bit more. We'll go ahead and tap on edge lighting, and from there it's gonna pull up a separate menu so you can begin customizing. Before you leave this page, there's one more thing that you need to do. So you need to go down here where it says manage notifications, and you need to assign the apps that can take advantage of this edge lighting feature. So for me, I'm gonna go ahead and just enable all of them. Number 8, the Galaxy Note 10 Plus and the Note 10 Plus 5G are really big phones, and managing them with one hand can be really difficult, especially when you're trying to go all the way to the top to swipe down to view your notifications. Luckily, the next thing I recommend is being able to swipe down anywhere on the display to access your notification shade. Let me show you how to do it. What you're gonna do is press and hold on your home screen, tap on home screen settings, and then turn on swipe down for notification panel. Now, it doesn't matter if you swipe down from up here or down here, it's gonna pull down your notification shade, which makes managing the phone with one hand much, much easier. Number 9. One thing that I like is to be able to see the battery percentage in my status bar. Luckily, you can enable that. What you're gonna do is swipe down for your notification shade, then swipe down one more time. You're gonna see these 3 little dots up here on the right, tap on those, and then tap on status bar. Then you could see there's an option for show battery percentage. Make sure that's enabled, and boom, there's your battery percentage, easy as pie. Number 10. The Galaxy Note 10 Plus and the Note 10 Plus 5G are perfect for consuming content. They're equipped with Dolby Atmos and HDR displays, but you do need to enable a few things to get the most out of these phones. Let me show you. Go ahead and go into the settings, find sound and vibration, scroll down to advanced sound settings, then tap on sound quality and effects, make sure Dolby Atmos and Dolby Atmos for gaming are turned on. Now, whenever you're watching a movie or playing a game that supports Dolby Atmos, you're gonna get an incredible sounding experience, especially for a mobile phone. Now, to get the most out of the HDR display, let me show you how to do that. You're gonna go back into your settings, go under display, go all the way to the bottom where it says video enhancer in blue, tap on that, and then make sure that is turned on. And you're gonna get colors that pop a little bit, more dynamic range, and overall just a more pleasing experience. Now, sometimes this does make the colors look a little funky, especially on YouTube, so you can always go back into the settings and turn it off, but for the most part, it's really going to improve the content consumption experience. Well, friends, that was the first 10 things that you should do whenever you get your Galaxy Note 10, Note 10 Plus, or Note 10 Plus 5G. If you have anything to add to this list, or you just wanna give me a quick shout out, leave it down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're new here, stick around by subscribing for more videos just like this. And I will talk to you fantastic people in the next video. Hey, what's going on, friends? It's Jonathan. Welcome back to another JC production where I deliver your daily dose of hotness. In this video, we're going to be talking about the S Pen. Now, a few days ago, I did a video explaining 10 things that you should do as soon as you get your Galaxy Note 10. In this video, I'm going to give you 10 tips and tricks that you should know or learn when it comes to using your S Pen with your brand new Galaxy Note. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight into this. Number 1. One of the brand new things with the Note 10 when it comes to the S Pen is something called Air Actions. Basically, you can remove the pen, and depending on what app you're in, you can wave the pen around while holding the button, and it's going to trigger different things. So you could do actions based upon movements and gestures in the air. Some people are comparing it to like waving a wand and playing as if you're Harry Potter, but it's pretty useful depending on the circumstance that you're in. So let me quickly show you. So we'll go ahead and remove the pen and do a quick, press and hold. It's going to open up the camera. Now from here, I can do different things, like if I hold down the button here, I could go to the side, and that's gonna switch modes. I could go to the other side, that's going to switch back. Do it again, and I can go all the way across the modes down here, which is pretty useful if you're like a vlogger and trying to capture yourself, or if you're trying to capture like a group. So say this is like on a tripod or something, you could actually control your camera with the S Pen, which in my opinion, is pretty practical depending on, again, the circumstance that you're in. Now, if you hold down this button and swipe up, it's going to take you to the rear camera. If you swipe up again, it's gonna go back to the front. If you go down, it's gonna go to the rear. Down one more time is going to go back to the front. Now we're gonna put it on the rear camera. You can also zoom in and out by holding down the S Pen button and then twirling the pen clockwise or counterclockwise. However, it doesn't work every time. But here's a little tip for you. If you hold down the button and then make a large N, you're going to zoom in. And if you want to go back out, hold down the button and then do a backwards N, and you'll zoom out. I have much more success doing the N versus the little rotation. So quick tip for you. If the gestures aren't working out for you, all you have to do is click on the little S Pen button right there, go into the settings, and then find where it says Air Actions. Tap on that, and then scroll down, and you'll be able to customize what happens inside the camera. So if we go into the app action for camera, you can see a single press right now is to take a picture or record a video. So you can change that. You can change the double press. You can change the gestures for the up, down, left, right, the clockwise circle, or the counterclockwise circle. So you could pretty much disable these two circles and have the left and right gestures zoom in and out. Whatever you want to do, you could do that, which is really nice. Now, while you're in here, you can also pick different app actions for other apps. So you have like your gallery, so you can view the details of a photo by swiping up. So we'll do that real quick. We'll go into the gallery, we'll find a quick video, and we'll hold down the button, and then swiping up should give us the information on the photo. Now, if we go back down, it's going to go back to like a quick view of the video or photo. And if I go right or left, it should cycle through my images. So yeah, But if you don't want that, you can actually customize it to do whatever it is that you want. By default, if you hold down the S Pen button, it's going to open the camera app. But if you don't want it to open the camera app and you want to maybe open the Samsung Notes app, like right here, all you have to do is go up here where it says hold down pin button 2, tap on that, and then find where it says Samsung Notes. So we'll go Samsung Notes. So now when I hold down the pin button, it's going to open up the Notes app. Number 2. Another new feature to the S Pen is something called AR Doodle. You guys probably have already heard about it, but if not, let me quickly show you what it is. So you can access AR Doodle 2 different ways. You can access it via the camera. So we'll just launch the camera and then tap on this little icon right here, and it's gonna automatically put you into the AR Doodle interface. Pick your writing utensil, we'll pick a highlighter, color's green, and then we'll flip the camera around, find my face, draw on my face, and you can see it's doing live tracking. I can start recording this video, and then I can do or say whatever it is I want to do, record it, and then I could post it on Instagram or send it to a friend, whatever I want to do, because that video is going to be recorded on my phone. You can do a face or you can do everywhere. It's all up to you. The other way to access AR Doodle is through the S Pen little menu system right here. Just scroll down till you see AR Doodle right here, tap on that, and it's going to open up the same interface. Same thing, just 2 different ways to access it. Number 3. So when it comes to security for your phone, you can use a passcode, you could use a pattern, you can use your fingerprint, you can use your face, but you can also use the S Pen. Let me show you how to set it up. So you're gonna go into your phone, and then you're gonna click on the S Pen menu right here. You're gonna go into the settings, and then you're gonna find where it says unlock with S Pen remote. Tap on that, and then tap on unlock with S Pen remote again. Click OK. It's gonna ask you to enter your PIN, so just go ahead and enter your PIN, and that's it. So now when we lock the phone, click on the S Pen button here. It's going to turn on the screen and then log me in. I know this may not sound secure, but just hear me out. If the pin is inserted and then has to be removed while on the lock screen, it's not gonna let you in. Let me show you. So we'll go ahead and insert the pin. You can see I'm on the lock screen. If I remove the pin and then tap the button, it's going to ask me for my fingerprint or PIN. So you can't get in. So if you lose your phone, as long as this is inserted and they remove it, they're not gonna be able to get into your phone. Number 4, another new addition to the Notes and to the S Pen is the ability to convert handwriting to text. You're gonna wanna create a note, so go into the S Pen menu, create note, and we'll write like a